with this one constant rhythm, with this one constant tone, and we're able to tone to that, right? Okay, so let's do it one more time. And make any sound that you want. Any noise. All right, close your eyes, ready? That was a very graceful. That probably sounded the least graceful. Let's bring it all back together one more time. So it's very easy to see what it's like to feel graceful, right? When we use our voices. With our physical bodies, when we're doing our yoga practice, this is how it should feel. But a lot of times when we're doing our yoga posture, we're going, ah, right? So we're feeling all this tension in our bodies. We don't know why we're feeling the tension. We don't know why we're feeling the pain. We don't know why our mind is agitated, why we can't breathe fully. The reason is because we're out of grace. We've fallen from grace, right? Not because we were stricken down, smitten by God, but because we didn't find ourselves in the proper alignment. So as we practice, as we study, our goal is to find ourselves in the proper alignment. And as we started from the beginning of last time, it's the Annamaya Kosha, right? This body made of food. All these cells, the bones, the muscles, all these things. It's difficult to put our mind into the proper alignment. It's even more difficult to put our emotions in proper alignment. Even more difficult to put our energies in proper alignment without appropriate instruction. But we can focus the body first and use that as a template, and then we can understand the mind, and then the emotions, and then the energy. Okay. So I can open up for questions. Again, these are technical questions about the syllabus. Any clarifications about the syllabus only?
Clarify the shoulder flexion and extension.
Sure. So shoulder flexion?
The difference between the two.
Shoulder flexion?
So it's in the sagittal plane.
Yeah, you're moving into the sagittal plane.
But that can be flexion as well in the horizontal plane?
No, this is going to be abduction.
Oh, that's abduction.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to remember, because we think that the shoulder is flexing, right? Or the shoulder is contracting. That's where we made the distinction between flexion, contraction, elongation, relaxation, right? Yeah. So this is extension, this is flexion, this is abduction, this is adduction. We'll do all this together. So don't worry about that. We'll have a lot of fun with this in a moment. Good question. Oh, and please remind me to move my car at the 3 o'clock bridge.
So on that same, along the same lines, so couldn't this be abduction as well?
No,
And why is it, this is abduction, or this is abduction, but when you're flexing out or extending out, couldn't that also be because you're going out?
Sure. So, could you remind me of
Abduction? Barbara.
Okay. So Sujantra, if I wanted you to do something for me, and I kept on calling you Sujantra, you'd be like, that's not me. How would you know who I'm talking about? If I was to be talking to everyone else about Sujantra, how would anybody know who I'm talking about? Everyone would be thinking I'm talking about this human being over here. Where if I was intending it to be you, nobody would know. There would be a lot of confusion. So the reason we call this abduction, the reason we call this flexion, is because we have to assign these names to the individual things. So yes, this is a flexion. This is also an extension. This is an abduction. This is also an extension, right?
Right.
So there's, at some point, somebody said, okay, we're going to have to designate names for these different flexions or for these different movements in these very specific planes. Does that make sense? So it's just all of them are extension, all of them are flexion, all of them are abduction, all of them are adduction, right? In principle. Just like we're all humans in principle, we have to, at a certain point, we distinguish ourselves by our name in order to set us apart from someone else. Any other questions? No? everyone has these two additional sheets? Just want to make sure. So I just got home last night around midnight, and I typed these up this morning, so there might be some typos, hopefully not. But we'll go through those at the end of the class. All right. A couple more minutes, or a couple minutes, look through the syllabus, see if you have any questions. If you, as you're going through the syllabus, please feel free to write down notes. Circle, highlight things that inspire you, things that also may confuse you, and then please use my email address. Please write me an email. I'll be a lot more diligent about returning them now that I'm still here in town versus when I was up in the woods.
What is that address?
It's Joshua at ALL, the number 1, MIND.org. So it's Joshua at allonline.org.
I have a question.
Sure.
For the anterior and the posterior field, like it's saying anterior would sway back, so like you're sway back.
You're moving forward, right? Anterior.
That's what I thought. The anterior was in front, posterior in back, but then this is swayed back versus scooping.
Oh, the sway back refers to the anatomical structure of the back. So this is a sway back.
Okay.
You know, like when you look at a horse that's 20, 30, 40 years old, whatever, I don't know how long horses are, but the really old ones, and they have that little dip, referred to as a sway back. So it's the same thing.
Okay.
When we're going through our cat and cow, this is a sway back, right?
Okay.
When I sway back, I'm anteriorly tilting the pelvis. When I start to move up into my cat pose, I'm posteriorly tilting. Now, you find that sweet spot. If you go beyond that sweet spot, then that's when your back begins to round, which is fine for this posture, but if you're standing, you don't want to stand like this, and you don't want to stand like this. And you'll see this a lot. In the yoga community, in the meditation community, you'll see people who sit like this, right? It's huge curvature, and it's so blissful, right? But what are they doing to the root chakra? They're closing off the root chakra. So you're introducing a full proper alignment. So it's always finding the common ground, again, finding the gracefulness, right? If I'm like this, I can't hold this for all day long. And I've got gravity pushing, and after a while, I'm going to become U-shaped backwards. If I'm like this, I'm going to become U-shaped forward, right? Proper gracefulness is trying to find where is that sweet spot. Ah, there it is. So now we can just sing. Don't worry about it going forward. Any more questions? No? All right, let's have some fun. So let's go ahead and move the books aside, move everything aside, come over to the top of your mat. And just relax. So complete relaxation. No, we're not going to get ready to do any asana practice. We're just going to go through some ranges of motion. All right, so everyone follow with me. Sagittal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Frontal plane.
Frontal plane.
Just keep it loose, keep it relaxed. Horizontal plane.
Horizontal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Vertical plane.
Vertical.
This is the
Frontal plane.
sagittal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Horizontal plane.
Horizontal.
Horizontal plane.
Horizontal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Frontal plane.
Frontal plane.
Vertical plane.
Vertical.
Alright, so we're going to pick it up a little bit, and then we're going to do as I say, not as I do. Okay? Ready? Vertical plane.
Vertical plane.
Frontal plane.
Frontal plane.
Horizontal plane.
Horizontal plane.
Alright, whoever did it wrong, Alright. So if you get it wrong, step back. You guys can be included in a moment. Ready? Ready? Vertical plane. Frontal plane. Every set, say it with me.
Frontal plane.
Okay. Sagittal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Horizontal plane.
Horizontal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Sagittal plane.
Yeah. Vertical plane. Frontal plane,
frontal plane,
sagittal plane,
sagittal plane,
sagittal plane,
sagittal plane,
frontal plane,
frontal plane,
vertical plane,
vertical plane,
frontal plane,
frontal plane,
sagittal plane,
sagittal plane,
frontal plane.
frontal plane,
Good. Horizontal plane,
horizontal plane,
frontal plane,
frontal plane,
horizontal plane, frontal plane,
frontal plane,
sagittal plane,
sagittal
horizontal
plane,
plane,
horizontal
horizontal plane,
horizontal
sagittal plane,
sagittal plane,
vertical plane,
vertical plane,
sagittal plane,
sagittal
frontal plane,
frontal plane,
horizontal plane,
horizontal plane,
frontal plane,
frontal plane,
sagittal plane,
sagittal plane,
horizontal plane,
horizontal plane,
frontal plane,
frontal plane,
vertical plane, frontal plane,
frontal plane.
and relax. Good. So you're feeling that you have it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's do it one more time. So I'm going to do it, and you just call out what it is.
Sagittal plane,
Okay.
horizontal plane, frontal plane, vertical plane, sagittal plane, horizontal plane, frontal plane, vertical plane.
Excellent. Is anybody that feels cloudy on this at all? Any fogginess? Clear? Everyone's clear? Good. All right. So let's team up. Sujantra and Tim, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, get excited.
All right, and pick your partner.
Cute.
How are you?
So whoever has the longest hair is going to be the demonstrator. Whoever has the shortest hair is going to be the person that's active.
I think I got it on here.
And make sure the active person can see me.
Hair off.
So we have to
Longer hair.
Longer hair
I think I
is
have
the
longer
person
hair.
who.
It's pretty long, you know it.
Long hair is a demonstrator.
Long hair is the demonstrator. Short hair is the activator, the person that's doing this stuff. Okay.
Take it.
Right. So the person who's long hair is the dummy. We'll say we'll put it like that.
Great.
So meet your partner. Greet them. Namaskar. Namaskar means reading. Namaste means the light within me sees the light within you. So namaskar. All right. You go ahead and and whoever is going to be demonstrating, just go ahead and stay relaxed. Okay. And just listen. You can actually close your eyes if you want. Just listen. The person who is the activator, the person who's going to be doing the work, walk over to the person. Hands reach, your arms reach. And we're actually going to touch each other. All right? So we're going to go through the skeleton. We're going to go through the bones. So go ahead and lightly place your hands right on their skull. Feel the skull. So one person's demonstrating, one person's just yeah. All right. So feel the skull. Right? Push on the skull a little bit. Feel how by pushing on the skull, you're also pushing on the heels. Right? Everything is connected. Everything is connected. Good. And then let your hand come down to the shoulders. You come to the front of the shoulders, and you feel the collarbone. What is the other name for the collarbone? Clavicle. Cool. When you come to the top of the shoulder, and you feel the bone here on the top, right? On the top back. Right back here.
Scapula.
Yeah, this is the scapula. This is what structure on the scapula, that bump that you feel, the longitudinal bump. What do we call that? It's the spine of the scapula. Good. So you're feeling the scapular spine, right? Now look at their throat and trace to the very end where the two clavicle come together in the front. You see a dip, and then run the finger along the belly, come to the bottom of the rib cage. Okay, good. This is the sternum. So from finger to finger, this is the sternum. So here, and here. So this is the sternum, from there to there. Okay? Now what attaches to the sternum is the What attaches to the sternum?
The ribs are
The ribs.
Costal.
Costal region. This whole region is the costal region. The area between the ribs is called the intercostal muscles. Right. So then, as we continue to go down, and you run your hands along their hips, and you come to the very top, right? So what are we touching?
The pelvis.
We're touching the pelvis, right? And then if we come forward, we find that bump, that like knuckle bump. Remember what this is called?
That's 4 words.
Yes. Anterior superior iliac spine.
Iliac spine.
And the reason this is important is because it gives us an indication as to how the torso is flexing relative, how the torso is moving relative to the hips, right? How the hips are moving relative to the legs. So it's a point kind of right in the middle between the legs and the torso to give us the guideline. And we'll demonstrate that a little bit later. So anterior superior iliac spine, which is on the pelvic bone, right? Okay. Have the person turn around. Demonstrators, turn around, please. So now run your hand down the back of their skull, right till it goes from being curved to flat. Okay. So around here is the beginning of what spine? Which? Cervical spine. And how many cervical spine are there? 7 cervical spine. So go ahead and trace your finger down from the bottom of the occiput, the bottom of the skull, down to this. You'll find a big bone right here at the very end. This is either T1 or C7 a lot of times. All right. Yeah. So find that big bone down here. Yeah, and find. Okay, so leave one finger on the big bone at the top of the shoulders. Use the other hand to find the side of the body and come down to the very bottom edge of the rib cage. And then go straight across into the back. Good, right there. And this is where the lumbar vertebrae begin. So then from where the bump is on the top of the shoulders, bottom of the neck.
Thoracic.
Yes, this is the thoracic spine. Beautiful. And how many thoracic spine are there? 12. And then how many ribs are there? 12 ribs, right? So there's 12 ribs. So that means that the ribs then attach to the thoracic spine, right? So all the ribs attach to the thoracic spine. Now they get a little bit funky, we won't get into them, but all the ribs attach into the thoracic spine. Okay. We have 12 thoracic vertebrae, 12 ribs on either side. So do women have 11 ribs? No. You know what's funny? I actually have a friend who's a doctor, or she was going through medical school, and we debated very heatedly. And she said that women had 11 ribs. She came from a very religious background, so it shows how deeply ingrained these things are into our. Even though she's a medical doctor, she was studying these books. She knows there's 12 thoracic vertebrae, right? And then there has to be 12 ribs, right? There has to be 12 ribs, unless you have some type of genetic anomaly, or a rib was removed or broken or something like that, right? 12 ribs, 12 thoracic vertebrae, and then from this triangular flat bone down here in the hip area to that area that you located here as being the first or second lumbar vertebrae. This area is called I gave it away already. Lumbar spine. How many are there? 5. Beautiful. So let's go through that again. Cervical spine. Locate the cervical. Good. 7 cervical, right?
Right. Is it that word?
And then thoracics. 12 thoracic, and then how many ribs? 12 ribs. And then from the bottom of the thoracic, top of the sacrum is the lumbar. And then there are how many lumbar? 5. Good. And if you look at these, I wish we had a skeleton. If you look at them, the thoracics are smaller, or the cervicals are smaller, the thoracics are larger, and the lumbars are huge. Really big, because they support so much of our weight. Okay. Now this is just kind of on the side. Now our sacrum, it's taught as being a fusiform bone, a fused bone of 7 or 5 different vertebrae. We found recently, within the last 100 years, osteopaths have found this out, that they're not actually fused. They're only partially fused. They actually move. So this bone here that feels like a perfectly flat bone, it's actually comprised of 5 different bones, 5 different vertebrae. And they all have a little bit of cartilage between them. They all move a little bit. So this is one of the reasons it's really important to open up our hips and to sit properly. If we're sitting back, like we do when we slump, and then the back of our sacrum is touching the chair, the slumping, like this. What we're doing is we're putting a lot of compression on it. And by putting compression, then we're causing trauma to the connective tissue between all these little spines. And by doing that, then we're going to add to their fusion. And we don't want them to be fusion. We want them to be able to be mobile. So the skull is comprised of many different bones, right? Everyone's seen the skull. It's not just one skull bone. You have the frontal bones, parietal bones, temporal bones, occipital bones. So you have all these different bones in the head. And they all lock together like Legos. But they lock together like Legos with a little bit of jelly in between. So they all move as well. So the sacrum, even though it's considered fused, it's partially fused and it moves. The skull is the same way. And the thing is, with the pulsation of our blood vessels and the pulsation of the energy that runs through our nerves, both in our skull and in our sacrum, these structures actually respirate. They're always vibrating. They're always flexing. So that's something good to know. So when we're getting headaches, when we're feeling lethargic, when we're feeling very tired, a lot of times it's because we have a lot of tension and compression here and in here. So doing things like forward bends and inversions are very good to help out with that. And this also shows that it's very important that when we're doing our headstands, that we use proper alignment, and then we develop the alignment of our shoulders, and we develop the strength in our arms so we're not compressing our skull. Okay? Alright, so one more time. How many vertebrae are there in the neck? 7. And these are called the cervical. And then in the mid to lower back, 12 thoracics. And how many ribs are there? 12. And then the lower portion of the lumbar or the vertebrae are? The lumbar. There's 5 of those, right? And then we have the sacrum, and the sacrum is comprised of individual bones, right? You don't have to memorize it. Just know that it is actually movable. It is actually flexible. Okay. So, demonstrator, go ahead and put your arms up like this. Okay. So go ahead and grab onto the upper arm. The people that are, and this one is called the humerus, right? Good. And then trace your way down to the humerus. Good. And demonstrators, put your palms down, please. Good. So the thumb side of the forearm is called the radius. The peaky side is called the ulna. And it's called the radius once again because it radiates around the ulnus. The ulna attaches, it's kind of like the big bone here that attaches into the elbow. And then the radius rotates around that. Good. And then go ahead and locate the ribs. Feel the ribs. Place your hands nice and wide. Put a little pressure. Have them breathe into the ribs. Have them expand the ribs out. Do this a few times. So just enough pressure. If you push too much, you crack the neck. So just a little bit of pressure. Breathe deep into this area. Expand the ribs. You feel the ribs actually moving apart. You feel space being created between the ribs. Good. This means that the body, that the ribs are expanding. So what do you think this is doing to the vertebra? If the ribs are moving apart, then what's happening to the thoracic vertebra are moving as well. So we can affect our rib cage through the posture of our spine, but we can affect the posture of our spine through our ribs, through proper breathing, right? Good, good. Okay, go ahead and relax your arms down, demonstrators. Go ahead and spread the legs a little bit wider. Let's do LAPD style pat down. So from the top of the hip down to the knee, what is this called? Femur. This is called the femur. Good, and then from the knee down to the ankle, this is the tibia. Fibula. Yeah, tibia is with the big toe. Tibia toe, right? No, the outside.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the front.
Oh no, the outside. From the knee to the outside, this is the fibula. On the inside is the tibia. And it's on the inside, it's medial but it feels forward because it's a much larger bone. So it wraps around. If you actually feel their tibia, you can feel how it's large and it's almost kind of L-shaped. Right? Everyone feels that? From the front to the side, it's almost kind of L-shaped. It wraps around with the contour of the leg. Good. So this is nice. Even though we don't have a skeleton here, you can start developing an idea of what the bones look like in your own mind, right? Good. And then go ahead and touch their feet. And the area here above the feet, below the ankle, what are these called?
The tarsus.
Yeah, the tarsus, right? And then these big long bones are the metatarsal, and then the little toes are phalanges. Okay, the same thing in the hand. Go ahead and touch the hand of your partner. And really grab it, hold on to it. Alright, and the bones in the wrists are called the carpals. And then the bones that emanate, that radiate off of the carpals are the metacarpals. And then the fingers are the phalanges. Good. Alright, go ahead and thank your partner. We're going to switch. Okay, any questions, anybody? No? Right, go ahead and place your hand on the skull after greeting your partner. And push a little pressure on the skull. A little bit of downward pressure. And see if the person feels it in their heels.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so you feel the whole body is interconnected, right? So this also makes us aware that our feet affect our posture. Our feet affect our skull. So the health of our feet will affect our posture in a huge way. Even so much as the way that we hold the head on our shoulders. Alright, go ahead and bring the hands down to the shoulders. And locate the bones on the front of the shoulders. The collarbones, also known as the clavicle, right? And then go over the shoulders and go ahead and reach around. Good. And then you'll find that longitudinal bump. This is the scapula, right? This is the spine of the scapula, right? And it goes from the medial border of the scapula all the way to the outside of the shoulder. Medial border all the way to the outside of the shoulder. A line that goes from inside to outside. Right?
Okay, so that's the scapula.
So this is the spine of the scapula. You had it perfect. Spine of the scapula.
Right, the top
Good.
portion.
And then go ahead and locate the area at the bottom of the throat, this nice soft area. And then the area at the bottom of the ribs, in the front of the body, above the navel. And the area between the two fingers is the sternum. Right? And what attaches to the sternum? Ribs, right? And if you were to look at the sternum, we have 12 ribs which attach to the 12 thoracic vertebrae. But we don't have 12 outlets for the ribs. And the reason is because we've got 2 floating ribs, and then we have some ribs that are attached to the sternum through cartilage. So there's really only 8 outlets for the ribs as they attach into the sternum. Alright, so go ahead and go down the waistline, find the top of the hip. And as you find the top of the hip, you go anterior, and you find that big pokey bone, the knuckle bone. We call this the anterior superior iliac spine, or the ASIS, right? And by knowing the location of this and watching this on our students and on ourselves, it helps to give us an idea of what the movement of the torso is compared to the hips, and the movement of the hips are relative to the legs. It's an anchor point, a place to draw our attention, a form of drishti, a form of gaze, a focus point. Okay, and then go ahead and have the partner turn around. And go back up to the skull. So follow the skull all the way down to where it meets the neck, where it begins to flatten out a little bit. And if you push it a little bit, you'll find a hollow. Right? God, remember where that hollow is. This is where C1 is. So this area is called the cervical spine, right? And how many cervical vertebrae do we have? 7. It's all right. I got them mixed up for a long time too. 7 cervical vertebrae, right? And if we trace that down, we'll find a big bump, a big bone. This will be C7 or T1. It's different for different people. And then from here, go ahead and leave one finger there. Find the bottom of the ribs, the very bottom of the ribs. And then move inward towards the middle of the back. And this is where you'll find L1 or L2. And this area is referred to as the, from finger to finger, with that thoracic area, right?
Thoracic spine.
Thoracic spine. There we go. There's C7. Wait a minute. So from here to here, this is the thoracic spine. And what is attached to the thoracic spine?
Which is
Right here. See this bone here? Right there. C7. It's the largest one. Okay. And then from what attaches to the thoracic vertebrae? The ribs. And how many ribs are there? 12 ribs. And then from the sacrum to the bottom of the thoracic spine, this region is called the. And how many spine are there here? 5. Excellent. And which ones are bigger? Cervical, thoracic, or lumbar? Lumbar. And then just below the lumbar, this area is called the
sacrum.
And this is comprised of what?
Few different bones.
Yeah, five bones partially fused. Right? Cool. And if you look at it, and you can see this when you look at your book, you've got this triangular bone, and you've got these holes in it. And from these holes, this is where our nerves come from. So you can see that if this is kind of what the sacrum looks like, right? If we have compression on here, what are we doing to the nerves? Compressing the nerves. And as we'll find out later, the nerves are directly associated with the chakras. So there's a lot of things we can do to affect the chakras, and by that we're affecting the nerves. And there's things we can do to affect the nerves, which also affect the chakras. So did everyone see this interconnected relationship with the body? Go ahead and put the arms up. All right. So it's something we didn't do on the other part here, but this is fine. Go ahead and locate the scapula. So find the spine of the scapula, and then trace it down and go on the inside a little bit until you find a tip. So you find like an arrowhead. So you go down even further. Right down. And indicate. Feel that?
It's there. Look, is that it?
You got it. Good. Everyone has located the lower tip of the scapula. Okay, so everyone put their fingers on the lower tip of the scapula. Put their fingers and thumbs on the lower tip of the scapula, and then demonstrators, bring the lower tips of your scapula in towards your spine. Everyone feels it? Good. Go ahead, bring it back out, let it relax. One more time. Bring it in. Good. Relax. Okay, now let's do this. Okay, keep the arms up, everyone. Let's stay focused. Draw the head of the arm bones back. Yeah, demonstrators bring the head of the arm bones back. Externally rotate the upper arm. And then now draw the tip of the scapulas towards the spine. So locate, yeah, good. So does everyone see how this triangular shaped bone, like an arrowhead, it moves in towards the spine. And it's moving towards, what structure you think is just behind that?
The heart.
The heart, right? Good. So the tip of the scapula are moving in and they're bringing the heart forward. Good. We'll work with that a little bit later. So go ahead and relax. Okay. So let's locate the upper arm. What is this called? Humerus, right? Because you hit your funny bone and it's humerus. Okay. Demonstrators, palms down, please. But arms up, palms down. So we're adducting our arms within the frontal plane. Palms are facing down. Good. And then the bone on the thumb side is called the radius. And you can see what happens. It comes up and it gets big up here, right? See where this bulge is? Yeah, good. And on the pinky side, this is the ulna. Good. And they call this the radius because it radiates around the ulna. Alright, and since we're here by the hands, go ahead and grab the wrist. And these bones are called the Carpals, right? And emanating, radiating off the carpals are the metacarpals. And then the fingers are the phalanges. Good. Let's go straight down to the leg. So go ahead and LAPD, stop that down. Down to the knee, right? This bone is called the femur, right? Good. And then from the knee down to the pinky toe, this area is the fibula. On the inside and anterior, so medial and anterior, this is the tibia. And it's related with the what toe?
Big toe.
Big toe. Good. And then the bones of the ankles are called the tarsals. And then the bones that jut off of them, that stick forward, are the metatarsals, right? And then the toes are the phalanges. Good. Go ahead and take your partner.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Let's go through the, take a sip of water or whatever, take it out, we're going to go through the muscles and then we're going to take a break. Alright? Anybody have any questions at all? So basically everything that we go through in our review is what you'll be responsible for the test. And I don't know, did you tell them about the written portion? Okay. So we talked about it. We are actually going to have a written portion. Okay. And it's going to be very rudimentary. It's going to be based on pretty much the names of the muscles and the bones, primarily. A little bit of principle, but mostly just the names of the muscles and bones. And this is to provide a little bit of motivation and stimulation to memorize all these different bones and muscles. Right, everybody? It'll be a fun test, right? It's fun. Okay, so Tim and Sujanta, have you guys back together? Yeah. And then pick a new partner, please.
Let me put the link up.
Okay, so obviously the bones are a little easier than the muscles, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're really gonna have to focus on this portion and really maintain that sense of inner calm and focus as we go through this. This is a meditation. All right, so let's have the person that has the longest hair this time will face towards me, and this will be the person who's actively touching and palpating, and the person who is the demonstrator, please also face towards me. Good. Go ahead and connect with your partner with the hands on the shoulders. A little bit of thank you. Beautiful. All right. So now this is going to take a keen eye, concentration, to be able to try and see these, because you've looked at these in the books, right? You see what the muscles look like underneath the skin. So what do the muscles look like on top of the skin? How can we relate with the muscles if we don't have X-ray eyes? Okay. So a person who's demonstrating, just relax. And let's locate the trapezius muscle. So let's go down to the bottom of the skull. Very bottom of the skull, just the skull. Yeah. And you can see two ropey muscles, right? Two ropey little bands that attach up to the skull on either side of the spine. These are the two heads of the trapezius as they attach up to the skull. And then trace that down towards the shoulder, towards the outside of the shoulder. Trace it down, use both hands. And then back in towards the thoracic spine. Down just below the lower tips of the scapula. So let's do that one more time. So from the occiput, the bottom of the skull, to the outsides of the shoulders, down back towards the spine. Around the level of T8, 8th thoracic vertebrae. Good. And this muscle makes a trapezoid shape, right? So this is called the trapezius muscle. All right, locate the inside of the scapula, from top to bottom, inside of the scapula, and then locate the spine. So from the insides of the scapula to the spine, these are called the rhomboid muscles. Rhomboids, right? We have two of them, major and minor, but just know them as the rhomboid muscles. And both of these muscles draw the shoulder blades onto the back, right? They're used for pulling. Beautiful. All right, come back to the bottom of the occiput, bottom of the skull, and then locate the top of the sacrum. Good. And then shift over just to the right, maybe half an inch. So you're just half an inch off the spine. And then trace your finger down there, from the bottom of the skull down to the top of the scapula. These muscles are considered the erector spinae muscles, the erector muscles. Because what do they do to the body? They keep the body erect, right? Good, that is correct. And then from the bottom of the top of the pelvis to the bottom of the ribs. So find the bottom of the ribs. Top of the pelvis to the bottom of the ribs. This muscle is in which region? Which region is this? This is the lumbar. And there's 4 portions of it. So this muscle is called the quadratus lumborum, right? Quadratus lumborum. So again, the muscles of the back, the trapezius muscles, the rhomboid muscles, the erector spinae, and the quadratus lumborum. Good. Go to the outside of the shoulders, please. You go ahead and push, and you'll feel it's kind of like a moderately tight muscles, just right in here. Good, everyone's got it. Perfect. The portion that everyone likes to have massaged. These are the teres muscles. Teres minor and major. So again, we have teres minor, major, rhomboid, trapezius, quadratus lumborum, erector spine. So the teres and the rhomboids help to externally rotate the upper arm and to move it away from the midline. So this is external rotation. Okay. Beautiful. And the rhomboids and the teres, which girdle is this part of? The shoulder girdle, right? These are two muscles of the shoulder girdle. Excellent. And then place your hands just at the bottom of their sacrum. Good. Leave one hand there. Go down to the very bottom of their bottom, where the bottom meets their legs. And these muscles here are called the gluteus maximus. We have a bunch of muscles, the gluteus maximus, medius, etc., minimus. But we'll just call these the gluteal muscles, gluteus muscles. And these muscles both extend the leg, right? This is a leg extension, and external rotation. So actually, leave your fingers right where they are. Everyone shift your weight to the opposite side. Of the demonstrator, shift your weight to the opposite side. Push your leg back. Feel how those muscles contract. And then please externally rotate your leg. Everyone feels that? You can even see that. You don't even have to touch it. You can actually see it, how it shortens. How one portion moves towards the other. So shift your weight to the right side. Set your leg back just a little bit. No, sit it back. Yeah, just like that. And then externally rotate. So turn the heels in, heels in there. Yeah, you see that? From here to here. Very short.
With my having my
It doesn't get involved in the flexions.
Is flexion here?
Yeah.
It is only involved in that it relaxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the glutes don't flex the leg, they only extend and externally rotate. The glutes are involved only in that they prevent hyperflexion of the leg. If I didn't have a butt, and I went like this, my knee would hit my head every time. I had nothing to keep it.
That's your anchor.
Right? Does anybody remember what this principle is? All right, if I'm flexing the leg, right, and when we were talking about the hip flexor, right? The hip flexor is the agonist. So then my glutes are the antagonists, right? Good. Okay, so let's leave it at that. We'll revisit that in this in a little bit. So we've got the gluteus muscles, and then from the bottom of the gluteus to the back of the knee, this muscle is called the hamstrings, right? Yeah, hamstrings, biceps femoris. Alright, and then the, I don't even think we did the calf muscles, but these are the calf muscles, soleus and gastrocnemius muscles. Alright, and then have your demonstrator turn around, please. And we're going to start from the bottom to the top. So stay right where you are at. Alright. And even though we didn't go through this, I'm going to let you know that every muscle has an opposing muscle, right? So if I have the gastrocnemius muscles and the soleus muscles, the muscles of my calf, which help me to, what type of flexion is this? Plantar flexion. Remember, dorsiflexion is coming back, like opening up a door, holding the door, right? Like a doorstop. Plantar, like I'm planting my foot into the ground. So if I'm plantar flexing, the muscles that prevent me from overly plantar flexing and taking my ankle off and shooting myself into outer space are these muscles here called the, so what bone is this? Tibia. And what portion is this? The inferior, superior, what portion of the leg is this? Anterior. So what do you think that this muscle would be called?
Inferior.
Tibi something, right?
Anterior.
Anterior tibialis. Right? Okay, so a lot of times the muscles are named for the structures that they're on. So calf muscles, anterior tibialis. Okay. So just for demonstration purposes, don't worry about memorizing it. Because they're not referred to a lot in yoga. Okay? So just say flex the calves, dorsiflex, plantar flex.
No, my class is going to be all about that.
Tibialis.
Flexor tibialis.
Alright. So then the big muscles on the front of the legs, go ahead and grab these guys. Massage them a little bit, give them a little bit of love, right? These are the quadriceps, okay? And they're called quadriceps because they're comprised of how many muscles? Four muscles. And these muscles, I'll just say them. They're the rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, vastus intermedius. These are the four muscles. But don't worry about that. There are four muscles in the quadriceps. What type of action do they do?
Extension.
Leg extension, right? Lower leg extension. Okay. And then we come up to the top of the quadriceps, and then, so you can actually see this. If you look from the side, most people, they have a curvature. And right where the quadriceps dip in, everyone sees that? Go ahead and push your finger right there. Good. And then locate their belly button, or have them locate their belly button. Good. And then rush from the belly button, bring that around to the spine. Alright. Good. So you got one finger here on the front of the hip, one finger down the back of the spine, level with the umbilicus. Beautiful. Alright, that's it. So the muscle that goes through the center of the body, from the front of the hip, from the leg, to the spine, it's a huge muscle. Does everyone remember what this is? Iliopsoas, right? Yeah, so it's a massive muscle, really strong. It's responsible for our ability to run and to kick. When we see Olympic athletes doing all the amazing things they're doing, one reason is because they properly condition their iliopsoas muscle. But it's also responsible for so much pain in the body. So it's interesting to see that how those things which can be both a blessing, they can also be a curse sometimes. Iliopsoas muscles, right? Also known as the hip flexor muscle, right? Good. And then the action that it does is hip flexion. Good. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Go ahead and touch the front of the belly. And these muscles are the abdominal muscles. And there's a a couple of them, but the two main ones are the Rectus Abdominus, right? And the Transversus Abdominus, okay? So now think about this. The word rectus, right, means what? Right, upright. And so we have Rectus Abdominus. What do we have on the back that has the same roots? The Rectus Spine and Rectus Femoris. So what do?
Everything will do it.
Yeah, they're holding you up. They oppose each other, right? So as I begin to stimulate my erector muscle so I can go into a back bend, my Rectus Femoris, or my Rectus Abdominus, naturally wants to relax, which is fine.
So they're the antagonists.
Agonist, antagonist. Exactly.
Depending on what you're doing.
Depending on what you're doing, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So as I begin to bend backwards, and I'm stimulating my erector muscles, my Rectus Abdominis muscles have to give a little bit. So this is called reciprocal inhibition, right? So the central nervous system is sending a signal to my Rectus Abdominis saying, hey, don't naturally fire, don't naturally stimulate, don't naturally contract, because if you do that, you won't be able to bend back. So this is a natural thing. So when we're doing yoga, sometimes we have to override our natural impulse just a little bit. So this is when we pull the belly in. So let's all do that together. So wherever you are, you can stay seated, you can stay grounded, wherever you are. Start to lean back a little bit. Just relax the abdomen. See what happens. You feel like you have no strength in the front of your body, right? Come back to the center. Think about the belly pulling in and up into the ribs. And now begin to lean back. Did you lose much mobility in your back? No. But do you feel more integrated in the front of your body? More strength? Good. Awesome. So this is stimulating the antagonist in order to support the agonist. A lot of big words, right?
Yeah.
Easiest thing to do is using the abs to support the lower back. This is what we're going to say when we're scripting in class, right? Pull on the abdomen just to stimulate the abdominal muscles to support the lower back. So now you can see structurally what's happening. You've got two opposing muscles, erector muscles and rectus muscles. And you're fine-tuning their relationship. And the more fine-tuned the relationship is, the more your body can express itself. Because then what are we in the flow of? Grace. And we're in the flow of grace because our muscles then become more fine-tuned.
We need to stay in grace with the parking meter minute.
Oh.
So.
Oh, you guys have to? Is there a parking meter today?
Oh, it's only 2. Oh, okay, that's right.
You have 2 hours.
Oh, it's 2 hours. Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
I have spent so much money in this town on parking tickets. Yeah, I used to live on this street. Oh, that was horrible. But anyways.
Okay.
I'm over that. You come. So we got the rectus muscles, the rectus abdominis. Muscles on the front of the chest. Big muscles on the front of the chest. Pectoralis major, right? Okay. And go ahead and everyone put your hand on the sternum, find the sternum. And then put one hand on the front of the shoulder. And demonstrators, bring your shoulder in and forward. So like you're trying to make your shoulder kiss your sternum. What muscle is this that's responsible for this type of movement? Pectoralis minor, right? So what does this look like? Typing posture, right? So the muscles that are often contracted a lot is the pec minor. They become shorter. Yeah.
Pec minor's where on her here?
So the pec minor is going to attach here and here to the sternum. And it's going to pull inward.
Here is here. So can you back that in
So
here?
the pec major radiates like a fan. The pec minor attaches from here. And it's a roping muscle.
Yeah, there.
Is it underneath the major?
I don't think so. I think it's a.
Oh, here's the major one.
We should ask him.
You can see the action that it does as it draws the shoulder forward and down towards the sternum.
Is that under the layer of the?
It is. Pec major lies on top of the pec minor.
Yeah, the pec major's laying on top of his head.
Pec major lies on. So the pec major. Everyone, look up here for a second. The pec major radiates from the sternum. Just a second. The pec major radiates from the sternum like this, like a big hand, like a fan, It goes outwards. So that's why we're able to contract it to make these big movements here. The pec minor is more fine-tuning. These are like the micro muscles, the supportive muscles, right? We have our prime movers, right? And then we have our stabilizers. So our pec major or pec minor is considered a stabilizer. And we'll show you how, even though this action here can create contraction here around the heart chakra, by properly stimulating this muscle, we can actually use it to open ourselves up.
So like major movements and minor movements, like this is a major big movement, whereas like this is like a small.
You can think of that like that.
And it's also the size of the muscle, right?
The size of the muscle,
Yeah.
and where it is relative to the other muscles. So major, it's going to be when they're doing dissection, they're like, oh, wow, we got this big muscle. This is a major muscle. I'm going to call it major. Oh, there's a little muscle underneath.
Right.
Oh,
So
pec minor.
superior, it's usually.
So it's right.
Directly underneath. If you were to actually snip the fascia layer here and pull away the pec major, one way or the other, you would see it run underneath. Alright. Okay. So then, along the ribs, on the outsides of the ribs, down from the chest, down to the top of the pelvis, these muscles are called the
Obliques?
No, we'll do the obliques. So the intercostals are a little bit more deep. Yeah, so these are the obliques here. So internal and external obliques, right? And they're responsible for this dorsiflexion and rotation. So, you know, like when you see Rocky and he's doing those things with the elbows. Exactly. So basically this type of movement, dorsiflexion and rotation, this is the obliques, internal and external obliques. Alright. And then deep to the obliques, in between the ribs, are the intercostal muscles, right? And they provide support, but they're also accessory muscles for breathing. And then, if we were to go from the shoulder down to the bottom of the ribs, serratus anterior. Serratus anterior. And this is the muscle. If you didn't have the serratus anterior, your scapula would pop off of your body. So it keeps your scapula pushed up against your body.
So it starts here and wraps around?
Exactly.
Where is it connected to the scapula?
Underneath and the lower edge, the lower border. So we'll see that. We'll actually go back and visit that. Yeah. It goes right down here. So it pulls, it keeps everything in.
So it looks like they're like in the book, they're like right on the ribs. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. And it follows the path of the ribs, follows the path of each position.
Oh, the serratus.
Serratus, yeah. Because they look serrated, like a serrated knife.
Yeah.
Right? They follow the path of the ribs, so they look serrated. They look bumpy.
So then, are there 10 intercostal muscles, or would there only be 8 sections of that?
There's going to be,
Because they're floating.
yeah, there'll be 10 intercostal muscles. Because the 11th rib and the 12th rib are both floating.
So when you get that thing, when you take a deep breath and you're either a weird angle or whatever, and it tightens up, is that the intercostal muscle?
It could be the intercostal muscle. It could be the oblique. It could also be the diaphragm and stuff. This is one of the things that happens when we get fearful. The natural thing is for the diaphragm to pull up into the rib cage, and for the lower diaphragm to pull up too. We go, and then we can't.
So all the
we can't
internal
breathe.
organs are protected, right? And that, I mean, that would be the
That's
primitive,
exactly
so
it.
everything's
That's
housed in this little case, and
That's exactly it.
something's coming
And then does it stimulate the root chakra when that happens? Like other nerves?
It closes it up.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it. This is good. We'll talk about this. Some of the practices in yoga, they say stimulate, sometimes they're actually closing. So you'll see like martial artists and they'll just touch here, and they'll stimulate this nerve plexus in here, which causes the diaphragm to begin to oscillate and contract upwards, so you can steal somebody's hair just by going and hitting them in just the right space. So what it does is it's kind of like a reset button. So this is the diaphragm. This is the area we usually, when we get fearful, this area pulls up.
Doesn't it begin even further down though? Isn't it the psoas that responds and then just like pulls everything?
Every muscle
Yeah.
contracts. But as far as for respiration, primarily it's the diaphragm. Alright, so we've gone through all the muscles. Did we leave out any muscles?
Yes.
The deltoids.
The deltoids.
And the major back ones are the.
Oh, yes, good, good. Oh, this is good. Awesome. So you guys have been studying then?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go ahead and locate the latissimus dorsi.
That's like the butterfly wings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Cobra rings.
that.
Yeah. And the action that it does is,
In my mind,
so it's expansive, but what does it do? What is the action of this muscle? Yeah, right? Adduction.
That's for abduction.
For abduction is
For adduction.
for adduction, adding to the body, right? Adduction. You can see how it is like a butterfly. Pulls downward through the frontal plane. Adduction. Right? So this is like when you're doing pull-ups, the latissimus dorsi. Okay? And since we're on the back, go ahead and find the spine of the scapula one more time. And then external rotation and extension is posterior or rear deltoid. Yeah, just like that. Good. So then we have the teres muscles, which then act in unison with which portion of the deltoid? Okay. Posterior, yes. The teres muscles act in unison with the deltoids, with the rear deltoids.
In both the
External rotation
and
extension.
Okay.
Extension more back this way. Teres are a little bit here, but it's mostly here to the side.
Okay.
Because you can do, so if I was to say abduct the arm and extend it, that's this. If I was to say abduct the arm and flex it, it'd be here. Right? Again, kind of arbitrary names, but we have to define it somewhere. Alright, so I think piriformis. Remind me. Piriformis is also an external rotator, right? It's part of this whole group of glute muscles. So gluteus maximus, minimus, medius, piriformis, all these guys. The gluteus muscle is extend. The piriformis is primarily for external rotation. So when you see people in the Pilates classes and they're going like this, right? Because they want to get Pilates butt. What are they doing to the piriformis inadvertently? They're shortening it. And if you shorten and strengthen something, if you elongate and strengthen something, that's good, right? If you shorten and strengthen something, you limit its range of motion. And then what do you compress then? What lies directly underneath the piriformis muscle that you can't compress? What type of structure? Just name off what a nerve, yeah. There's a large nerve, the sciatic nerve, that runs just below the piriformis muscle. So if we shorten and strengthen the piriformis muscle, then there is a possibility for certain people during certain stages of their life, depending on their training, to compress that sciatic nerve. Especially if we're spending a lot of time sitting down. You know, when you're driving, are we driving like this, or are we driving like this? Usually our legs are externally rotated. And then we're doing this little movement here. If I did this all day long, what do you think would happen to my hip flexor muscles? They'd get short and strong, right? So it's interesting to note that we created chairs, we created seats in our car to give us comfort, right? But our comfort has also created what for us? Pain. It's become a prison for us. If our body cannot move painlessly throughout many different ranges of motion that we were designed to do, then the habits of our body, the way that we sit, the way we conduct our body, then becomes bondage in one way or another, right? So, living a life that's full of full ranges of motion, walking a lot, sitting down on the floor as much as possible, these things will help to limit the amount of bondage that we've created for our body, because we've decreased the freedom of our body. And we can see that in people that are 60 years old and they've spent most of their life sitting in a chair, right? They walk like this. You know, I know some 60-year-olds that are still climbing Everest. And what is the difference between the two of them? The way that they conduct themselves, their own physical habits. And if we take that same concept and apply it to the way that we think, we can see that they both apply. From the Annamaya Kosha, this body made of food, to the Manomaya Kosha, right? So the habits that we conduct, the habits that we adopt for our physical body, and the habits that we adopt for our mental body, and also our emotional body, you can see how they're all related. You can see how they will affect the way that we relate to our external environment and our internal environment. Right? Right, let's take a break and we'll switch partners after this.
Well, my pleasure.
Massage too.
Yeah.
Things of bones. We're not going to worry so much about the origins and the insertion of the muscles, where they start and where they end, but their function is very important. And then I'll ask you about some relationships to the other muscles, but not some of the hard ones. It'll be like the easy ones, right? Rectus Abdominus, your Rectus Spine, stuff like that. Cool? Mm-hmm. All right. So are you starting to feel like you have more of a holographic image of the body? Yes. Of what the body looks like underneath? Yeah. So even if you don't remember every name of every muscle and every bone, just being able to look at the body holographically for your own body or your students and to think, well, I don't remember the name of that muscle, but I know there's a muscle there and I know it does this, and this looks like it's either being overextended or overcontracted, then you can help to adjust their posture in one way or another. Alright? Yes?
For the test, do you want us to like the Latin name, or for like hip flexors, can we just make hip flexors, or do you want us to know?
So everything that's on the chart.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the chart in this chart.
Because the bone names have common names, but the muscles don't have very many common names. Right, you've got shoulder blade and scapula, clavicle and collarbone. Those are common names. So know both the common name and the Latin name for the bones. Because when you're, part of it is also, yoga is now being accepted as a very, very good therapy for a lot of different things. I was even hired by the VA hospital to come in and teach yoga there. Medical doctors are recognizing it. In fact, there's the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and they have a peer-reviewed journal. This is the first time in history that we know of that there's actually a peer-reviewed scientific journal based on yoga. So, if you understand this language, you can read those things and know what the hell they're talking about. And you can also communicate with other physicians or other people within the medical field. You know, I hate to say this because we don't really need qualification if we're solid in our knowledge and what we're doing. But in order to give us a little bit more credence within the professional community, this helps to give us a little bit more credence, a little bit more of a better reputation. To be able to say, your collarbone is also the platform, to know that what they're talking about. But then when we're teaching in class, use as many common names as you possibly can. Because you don't want to, think about how overwhelmed you are here. If you've never heard these names before, you could be really overwhelmed. So use all the common names that you possibly can. And use the names of the muscles sparingly. And use them as in groups of muscles. Quadriceps muscles, right? Instead of like using individual names of the quadriceps muscles. Or shoulder retractors. You can make your own up, make up your own names. Right? That's one of the things I was saying when it's time to communicate. What is the most effective way to communicate? You have to put it into a language that makes the most amount of sense for you and your students. Right? Okay. Alright. So let's move on to section 2. And let's turn to page 40 through 43. Have page 40 through 43 available, and then place a little mark or dot here, page 210 through 211. So we're beginning to move deeper, right? So we started first with our external planes, our horizontal plane, sagittal, frontal, vertical plane, right? All the external planes. And then we went and looked at the individual joints, right? External rotation, internal rotation, flexion, extension around all the joints. And then we started looking at all the bones that are associated with all the joints. And then the muscles associated with all the joints, right? So you can see how we're slowly moving inward. So now we're going to take a muscle. We're going to pull it off the bone. We're going to look at it. We're going to analyze it. We're going to say, okay, muscle, what is it that you're doing? How do you work? So we can look at the muscle in a couple different ways. We can look at it as a very dynamic system of energy in cells, which is what it is. But we can also look at it mechanically. So if you were to think of a, has anybody ever taken a cable for, I don't know if anybody actually uses cable television anymore, but the cable for cable television, the black cables, you chop off the top. You know, the black portion is the sheath. On the inside you see a whole bunch of little cables. Right? Okay, you can think about the muscles in that way. So we have individual muscle cells. These individual muscle cells, they all group together, they create these muscle fibers. And then we've got these sheaths that come around the muscle fibers, and they create these things called fascicles, these bundles of muscle fibers. And then there's even more sheaths around that are called greater fascicles, or this is when we get into the area of the conch. So here, I'll do this for you. Muscles are comprised of individual contractile fibers. Individual fibers. You know, it's like a fiber of hair, or a fiber when you're looking at a shirt. Organized into bunches called fascicles. So you think about a cable wire. Each of the bunches is further organized within a non-contractile sac. So this is like a band that goes around the muscle fibers. So the muscle fibers themselves have certain relationships to each other, which means they can pull towards each other and move away from each other. They're very dynamic. You think about muscle fiber like this. As the muscle fiber contracts, a bunch of different types of chemical and electrical things happen, and the muscle fibers move towards each other. And then as it relaxes, they move away from each other. So these are the contractile fibers. These are the muscle fibers. They're organized into fascicles. And then what lies around these different fascicles, so you have a muscle fiber, right, one finger. You have a fascicle, which is a bunch of fingers into one little sac, right? All of this is still considered contractile tissue. And then on top of that, then you have the fascia. The fascia is non-contractile tissue, right? So this is how it becomes very mechanical. The fascia is like a sheath that surrounds the individual fascicles, as well as the surface of the individual muscles, thus integrating them together. So it runs on the surface of the muscles. It also dives in to surround the fascicles. So it's a very elaborate, it's probably the most amount of surface area is just the fascia, because it covers the entire surface of the body and everything in between. So this makes sense? Right? It's like candle wax. If you have two bookends that come together, right? You put a candle on the top and the whole wax melts. It melts on the surface, but it also melts down in between the two books, right into the space. The fascia is the same way. It dives down in between. So it covers not only the muscles, but also surrounds all of the organs, all the internal organs. So you can see how muscle tightness will also affect the internal organs, right? Because they're all related. They're all connected. So it's like, if I pull the mat here, I can see it move here, right? Well, this is all bunched up, and this is my liver, and this is muscles around my liver, and these guys are all bunched, then I'm going to start putting too much pressure on my liver, right? It's affecting my liver in a way that's not good, because just like we said, our sacrum, our skull needs to expand and contract, the heart needs to expand and contract, the intestines expand and contract, the kidneys expand and contract, the liver expands and contracts, because it has blood vessels that run through it. And as the heart pumps blood, moves into the liver, it expands a little bit, contracts a little bit. If the fascia is too tight, the surrounding sac around the liver is too tight, and the surrounding sag around the entire body is too tight. Then when the fascia is tight, the liver's tight. The liver can't do what? Expand and contract properly, right? So that means it's going to build up what? Toxins, right? Because the liver needs to expand and contract. It needs to have enough space for the blood vessels to move the toxins in and out of the liver as the liver begins to filter all of the toxic material that we bring into our body.
So if somebody who's maybe very obese or heavier weight, what effect does that have on the muscles of the belly?
Tons. Quite a bit, because then their muscles and the fascia and all the connective tissue, it then has to grow in an disproportionate way to support their weight. I mean, you see somebody that's extremely obese, and they get up out of the chair and you're thinking, how can this person move? You know, their body accommodates. Right? That's one of the things our body is great at, their accommodation. You know, the perfect example is you see a dog that gets its leg chopped off. And if you see it from one side, it's running normal, and it like runs past you, like, whoa, it's missing a leg, that's strange, I never saw it. Life wants to perpetuate life. We're really good at accommodating. But as we're accommodating, if we're out of the flow of grace, then we're going to create more harm to our body, more harm to our internal state, more harm to our energy, right? So, you know, the whole reason we're practicing this yoga is so that we maintain a good, healthy weight, we have a good diet, we have good alignments, and we flow with grace. So I took that off a little bit of attention. So. All right, let's go to page 210. And also the effect that it has with people who are severely obese is they get what's called fatty liver syndrome, where they have a lot of calcification of the fatty tissue, kind of marble. When you look at a steak and it's marble, the fat is marble to the steak, the same thing happens to the liver. And that really destroys the ability for the liver to process. And what happens is it becomes big. And then you get hepatitis. It's inflammation of the liver. Not necessarily viral hepatitis, but you get cirrhosis and enlargement of the liver, fatty liver. Just as a side note.
Joshua?
Yes?
Is the myelin sheath also fascia, or is it different?
The myelin sheath is different. It's a neuronal tissue. It's a conductive tissue. You know, I'm pretty certain that it's probably comprised of the same material. But I don't know of any direct relationship between the myelin sheath and the fascia. Although some researchers are saying that the fascia is also neuroconductive. I mean, everything is neuroconductive, but it's got a higher amount of neuroconductivity. You know, you have different types of metals which can conduct electricity better. Some researchers are saying that the fascia is probably one of the highest conductivity of nerve stimulation can be done through the fascia. Still remains to be seen. So we have page 210. And isn't this a beautiful picture on 211? So what we're looking at is the fascia. It surrounds the entire body. So the fascia planes are like lattice-like matrix, thin sheets of connective tissue that cover the organs and muscles. Sensory nerves are found throughout the various fascial planes and are stimulated by stretching the fascia in yoga postures. This nerve stimulation can evoke emotional and energetic releases during the practice of yoga. This image illustrates the fascial planes and the movement in Vertebra Spine. As a side note, this book was written by an orthopedic surgeon, 20-year board registered orthopedic surgeon. So it's nice that he adds quite a bit to it. You know, so the stuff that he's putting in here, this is hard science, this is good science. So the contraction of muscle tissue. The nervous system, so the brain and the spinal cord, sends an electrical impulse from the brain, or commanding the muscles to contract. The fascicles shorten, and they pull on the fascia, which then pulls on the tendons and the bones, moving the joint through the desired range of motion. So that makes sense? Muscle fibers contract, fascicles contract as one unit. Then the fascia contracts, and the fascia attached with the tendons and the bones, then moves the structure of the arm. So muscle fiber contracts, the fascicle contracts. This pulls the fascia pulls on the tendon pulls on the bone, and the bone moves. So this is kind of like, this is happening at milliseconds, like microseconds, really, really small amounts of time. This is happening. And the end result is I get to move my arm. It's easy to see from here how important the fascia is and how an imbalance, tightness, adhesion, or lesion, or cut, or a bunching of the fascia layer anywhere in the body can affect the rest of the body, including the internal organs. So you think of a wrinkle in a shirt. If the whole shirt looks nice, but there's a large wrinkle in the front of it, it looks messy, right? So you wouldn't say that, hey, you did a great job ironing your shirt, even though you spent 20 minutes on it. If you have one wrinkle, right? You'd say that's a wrinkly shirt. It's got a wrinkle on it. Same thing, the fascia. Then, if it bunches in certain places, then it begins to affect the body in big ways. And most of us, we have lesions in our fascia just from daily activity. But we know it the most when a person tries to get up out of bed and the body just doesn't function. Too much tightness or something, right? Excessive amount of pain.
And that's the fascia.
A lot of times it's the fascia. Because the fascia then acts as a bunch of chains. You know that when you take a chain, you spin the chain, right? Like a swing set, you turn the swing over and over and over and over, and it bunches up, and it can't turn over anymore. It's the same thing. The muscle fiber is spasming, right? The muscle fiber is spasming because it's not receiving enough oxygen, it's not receiving enough nerve impulse, it's not receiving enough blood. So it spasms, and it begins to contract. And then along with that contraction, then the fascia contracts. And then the fascia pulls on the limb, and you get Ocean's shoulder syndrome. I can't move my shoulder. So then, acupuncture is great for that, because the acupuncturist goes in there, very light needling, stimulates the fascia, finds the knock, and it opens up. Oh, I got a random one. That's good.
So how about something like Rolfing and color work?
Rolfing works primarily with the fascia. In my opinion, it's probably one of the most effective. That and Toinao, which is a Chinese form of massage, in my opinion, are the two most effective forms of massage. Because they study the fascia in depth. They study the muscles, but they really understand the dynamic movement of the fascia and how the fascia in the legs affects the fascia here in the chest. It's probably the most integrated way of looking at the structure of the body.
So what was the other Chinese thing that you said?
Toinao.
29?
Toinao. Like tuna with an eye. Toinao.
Like a progression, right?
Yeah, it's a form of like acupressure and different types of like rolling techniques and stuff like that. So it's just like rolling, it's just like Rolfing, but like Rolfing's ancient cousin.
I just want to sort of get the so like if you wake up in the morning and you're kind of like sore, that's the fascia, or can that also be the muscles be like are the muscles? So it's both.
Fascia and the muscles.
Okay.
Because the fascia, we showed by the previous paragraph, the fascia is directly connected with the muscles are directly connected with the fascia. So if you have problems in the muscles, it's going to affect the fascia. If you have problems in the fascia, it's going to affect the muscles, right? So things like stretching, this dynamic form of stretching, we're going to learn different forms of stretching. This dynamic form of stretching includes both the muscles and the fascia, right? So this is at the beginning of class last week. I was saying that we're going to take everything apart, we're going to dissect it, we're going to look at it in abstract ways, but we can't forget that it's all connected. Everything is all connected. So yes, you're absolutely right. Both of those. It's both the muscles and the fascia. And it's depending on who you go to for your therapy. If they're a muscle specialist, if they're a master of what they do, they can release the fascia through the muscle. Or the other way around, they can release the muscle, they can release the fascia through the muscle through the fascia. So you're starting to see this relationship. Mainly what I want you to understand is there is a relationship between these contractile fibers and the sheath that lays on top of it. And then it's a dynamic relationship. When one is tight, it's going to pull the other one downwards. And then Hatha Yoga balances all of those. Cool. So reciprocal inhibition is how the body balances the muscle contractions, right? If I want to flex my bicep, my tricep needs to be inhibited because it's the antagonist. If my tricep is flexed, or if it's contracted, I can't flex my bicep. Try as hard as I want, but it's not going to happen. Right? So reciprocal inhibition is how that works. It's how the body balances the muscle contractions. This means that the antagonist is inhibited, blah, 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 we already talked about that. So this imbalance occurs when somebody gets tetanus or they have seizures. All the muscles are going off at the same time. The central nervous system loses its ability to do reciprocal inhibition. So that's basically what that is. It's important to note that the antagonist is not completely relaxed, otherwise if you straighten your arm without some slight resistance from the biceps, my arm will just pop backwards. So there is still a little bit of resistance. Probably maintains 10 to 20% of resistance still. Right? So it's not completely inhibited. If I'm trying to extend my arm and I'm contracting my triceps muscle, then my biceps aren't completely relaxed. This is what we were talking about before with antagonist-agonist relationship with plantar flexion, dorsal flexion, or leaning back, leaning forward, all that. Is this too much information? Good. The subtle balance takes place automatically in the body, but we can affect and fine-tune these abilities throughout the year. And that's basically what we're doing. We're fine-tuning our abilities. We're increasing. You think about it like this. When you first learn how to paint, say you want to paint a landscape, you have a green smudge and a brown smudge and a black box, and you say, okay, this is a house and a prairie, right? But as you begin to understand more about painting, then it begins to take on finer and finer detail. So much that you can draw even the little fibers in the wood. You see that with a really accomplished artist. We're doing the same thing with our body. We're fine-tuning our body to such a degree that we can do all these different things. Alright, stretching. So when a muscle stretches, the individual filaments within a fiber slide along slide along each other, moving away from the common midline resting state. So it's like this. So pretend now my arms are fibers, right? Before this is a fiber, now my arms are fibers. And within a fiber, we have a filament. And the filaments are going to come together like this. So their common midline resting state, we'll say, is here. Right? So as I'm extending my leg, so I'm stretching my biceps joints and stretching my hamstring muscles, the filaments are moving away from a common midline resting state. So what happens is, when we're not trained, when we haven't fine-tuned our body has a natural protective mechanism. So say this is a natural midline resting state, and I go to do a forward bend, and my hamstrings moving, and they get stuck. It's a protective mechanism. But as I don't do that, you haven't done that very much. Why would you even doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Where do you get off bending forward like that and try to flex your body like that? That doesn't make any sense at all. We can stop right here, right? Over time, we train our body, and we begin to lower our inhibition. So here's the midline resting state. Here's where we get stuck. Proper training over time, we can really open it up. And here we're still safe, because the muscles that are preventing us from going are doing the right thing. And these are those antagonists, right? Or agonists in this case, right? So this is starting to make a little bit of sense. So it's not just one side of the body that matters, it's both sides of the body that matters. If we really want to open up one side of our body, we really have to train the back side of our body. If I really want to open up the back side of my body, I have to really train the front side of my body. And if we were to try to do this one muscle fiber at a time, one muscle at a time, one muscle group at a time, we drive ourselves crazy. So at the end of the class, we're going to put this all together. All right. So For a conditioned body, the filaments are able to maintain a certain degree of strength when the filaments are relatively far from the starting point, so they're still able to have that confidence even further away from each other. This gives the muscle fiber confidence and will allow the whole muscle to stretch to a greater degree than that of a non-conditioned body or muscle. Another component of muscle stretching, which is considered by some to be the most important, is the fascia layer. The fascia also receives signals from the brain and spinal cord and limits the contractibility and flexibility of the muscle. This demonstrates the relationship between the mind and the muscles. Think back to a time when you've had a lot of stress. This goes back to what you were saying. The next day when you got out of bed, you felt sore and more stiff than the previous day. This is generally the case. When you think back, you had a really stressful day the day before, and you get up in the morning and you feel like crap. Oh my God. You might have gotten 7, 8, 10 hours of sleep, but you still feel unrested. It's because your mind contracted, the fascia contracted in soup. So you can think about the fascia tissues being a physical, larger version of the brain, just kind of superimposed over all the muscles and all the organs. So it's kind of like the physical mind, right? When the mind contracts, so do the muscles. Considering the relationship between the muscles, the fascia, and internal organs, it is easy to see how mental stress can negatively affect the internal organs, especially the hollow bowels, such as the intestines, the gallbladder, the bladder, the stomach. And think about stuff like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, stress. People who usually have IBS or double bowel disease and Crohn's disease, it's normally mediated by stress. You can see also in the liver how if the fascia is tight, the liver is not able to expand and contract, the intestines are able to expand and contract and push the waste product out of our body, then we begin to store all those toxins in our body. We become irritable. So the types of stretching. The most common technique in Hatha Yoga is static. And the static stretches, you can break it down into two different portions. You have active, which is contracting an antagonist in order to facilitate the stretching of a larger target muscle. An example of this is flexing the quadriceps and hip flexors to deepen the stretch of the hamstrings and the forward. So, if I just bend forward like this, it's just like gravity, right? This is kind of a passive stretch. And if I lift my knee, and I use my quadriceps, and I use my hip flexors, I can go down to a deeper degree. So this is the type of stretch that we use most commonly in Hatha Yoga. And then the passive is body weight stretches the muscles. When you think about restorative postures, when you're laying on your back and you've got the bolster between your shoulders, you're like, oh my God, that's really good. Right, that's passive. It's really good for working with the parasympathetic and sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It's good for calming down the body. It's good for restoring the body, for keeping the muscles at a certain time, over a certain period of time. But the majority of the work that's done, if you really need to open up your body, the majority of the work that's going to be done is going to be done using active stretching. And then of the type of active stretching, facilitated is the most useful. So
when you talk about that, it's like camel pose.
What was that?
When you are talking about the stretching, it's like camel pose, for example.
Like what type of pose?
Camel.
Oh, camel pose. Camel pose. What about that?
Is that you were reading before about the stretching, like deeper stretching, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like.
Oh, I mean like for restorative. Well, this is mostly for like restorative postures.
Okay.
So that's passive stretching is like restorative postures. We're just laying over a bolster, and you're opening up your rib cage and you're opening up your chest. Mm-hmm. But I think what you're saying is if you really want to open up your chest, like camel pose.
Yeah.
That's when you're doing physical. That's when you're doing active stretching.
So that's an active stretching.
That's an active stretching.
Okay, right.
Good.
Just my mind went there right there.
So facilitated, this is the most useful for deepening and opening up a certain part of the body. It resets the muscle and smooths the fascia layer. So basically this is contracting the muscle that's being stretched. So I'll demonstrate with camel pose. So if if I go straight up into camel pose, obviously I'm stretching my quadriceps, I'm stretching my hip flexors to some degree, I'm stretching my rectus abdominis, and I'm opening up my chest, right? So this, just by itself, this is that an active stretch or a passive stretch? Active stretch. Now what I'm going to do, and you won't be able to really see it, is now I'm going to do the facilitated portion, which is basically I'm going to be contracting. We're talking about fine tuning. I'm going to finely tune and contract the muscles that are being stretched. So I'm going to contract the abdomen a little bit. I'm going to contract the pec muscles. I'm going to contract the hip flexors. I'm going to contract the quadriceps. So you won't be able to really tell what's going on, but that's what's happening. So basically what I'm doing is I'm resetting the muscle and I'm increasing. So let's say from here to here is all I have, right? So what happens if I made my hands twice as big? I'd increase the ability to go. Even though my filaments can only go from here to here, if I make the muscle twice as large, the amount of space for stretching is that much larger, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of like what that same idea in Pilates, I think, is what I'm understanding. Is that you're that the muscle that you're stretching, you're supporting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It can be said 100 different ways, but that's basically it. So we're looking at it from a very small scale. We're looking at it really, really deep into the muscle. What's happening to the muscle? So basically, I stretch the muscle to as far as it's going to go, comfortably, and then I contract it a little bit, and then I move this away. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly.
So when you're like exhaling and going in the pose, stretching the abdomen, and then
When you're
exhaling to go further into the stretch.
So that, if you do that without contracting the muscle that's being stretched, is only going to be an active stretch. So say for example, if I'm here in Dmso, and I'm just coming forward like this, and say inhale, and exhale to go further, right? So this is just an active stretch. But then if I pretend like I'm trying to bring my heel back towards my leg and contract these muscles back here, then I'm actually engaging and facilitating. So does it look like my body's going any deeper? It's going about the same, right? But what I'm actually doing is I'm engaging the muscle fibers and then stretching them.
So like isometric almost. I mean, you're activating something on that cellular level without, is that?
That's it, isometric. Metric is a unit of measure. It's movement. Iso means to isolate it. So we're stopping a movement by pulling the muscle fibers closer together and then stretching it out.
So it's like when you pull your thigh muscle closer to the bone, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. This is facilitated stretching.
So then if you're using, like we were talking about this yesterday, to use your core muscles, for me, I have a hard time getting from like downward facing dog into a lunge. So Nicole was telling me I needed to use my abdominal muscles. So what I did was I tried to contract, I was contracting more of my abdominal muscles in order to get into that lunge. So is that still a facilitated stretch? Because I'm using different muscles to move my leg forward. Does that make sense?
Sure. So in that case, during that transition from downward facing dog to a forward lunge, there's not much that's being stretched besides maybe the back muscles. So I think that what she was saying is that when you're trying to go from downward dog into a forward lunge, a lot of times people get stuck here, right?
Right.
If you can bring the muscle in around the back, then you can step forward. So it's a matter of being able to pull energy into the abdomen and pull the knee as close to the chest as possible. So again, so the typical is, get stuck here. Right? I did that for a long time. just from fine tuning, is able to bring it in.
This also becomes where it gets into the deeper energetics too. Remember I talked about bandhas, and that will actually help you to move in that way as well. So.
But that has nothing to do with the facilitated stretch, right?
No, that's
Yeah, I just wanted to
Okay,
mix it
so it's a different thing.
yeah. And it's nice to deviate once in a while, so that way you can say, okay, this is facilitated stretching, this is not facilitated stretching.
So with the, like, let's say I'm trying to stretch out my inner thighs, and someone puts, so I can go this far, then someone puts resistance here, and I push up into it.
That's
Is that your facilitated also?
yeah, that is a facilitated stretch. But you can also try this. So, yeah, like you're trying to bring your knees down towards the ground,
Yeah.
and then push your feet in towards each other.
Uh-huh.
Feel how that contracts here?
Yeah.
So this butterfly stretch is not for the top of the hip. It's not a hip flexor stretch.
Right.
It's an adductor stretch.
Okay.
It's like when you can open up your shoulders more just by pressing your hands a little bit together. You do this and you're not getting the stretch, but you do this and it doesn't look like you're doing much. It's different.
Yes.
You feel that subtle movement in
Uh-huh.
there. And so you're using your own body energy, or right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a form of integration. That itself is not necessarily a technique for facilitated stretching. Facilitated stretching is a very specific way of stretching. So the easiest way to think about doing it is if I'm bending forward and stretching my hamstring muscle, I'm also pushing my heel into the ground and contracting my hamstring. So I'm contracting the muscle that I'm stretching.
So does that mean that you're using the agonist and the antagonist? That is that the same thing?
No, this is a little bit different.
Okay.
Just a little bit different, yeah. So there's some subtle variations. And we'll get into that when we put it all together, it'll all make sense, and it'll happen at the end. So this is just, we're thinking about just the muscle that's being stretched. We're not talking about reciprocal inhibition, right? So if I wanted to reciprocally inhibit my hamstring, I would flex my quadricep muscle. And this would give me more depth into my hamstring, theoretically. Now, if I'm contracting here, and then I contract my hamstring at the same time, by pushing my heel into the ground, and then stretch, then I'm doing both reciprocal inhibition and facilitated stretching. But in that case, the facilitated stretching is overriding the inhibition, so it's not even there. Then it's just the quadricep muscle is flexing just to protect the knee. Alright, so we'll stay in the abstract, and then we'll jump out into the big expansive big picture. So just think about this theoretically. So let's all try this Janu Sirsasana. Let's do this together. So now we're not really warmed up, so please don't go for the full expression of the pose. Just stretch until you start to feel that stretching sensation. Stay here just for a breath and just feel it. Come back up, relax. Now flex your quadriceps. So you'll know that the quadricep is flexed because the kneecap moves up towards the hip. You can actually feel this here. And now lean forward. Now you might have just a little bit more mobility, just a tiny bit of mobility. Right? Go ahead and come back up. So now we're going to facilitate stretching. So pay attention to where your body was in space. And now we're going to contract the hamstring muscles by pushing the heel into the ground, just a little bit. Right? If you get really good at this fine tuning, you don't even have to move the heel. You can just say, okay, I'm contracting the hamstrings. But for now, push the heel into the ground, contract the hamstrings. So it's almost like you're trying to flex. So if the floor wasn't here, my heel would come back and hit you in the butt. So the heel is pushing down into the ground. The hamstrings are contracted, and now we're going to stretch the hamstrings at the same time. So you should be able to come down to about the same place that you were before, but we're creating a larger stretch because the muscles are now contracted in towards each other. The muscle fibers are now overlapping to a greater degree. Go ahead and come back up. Did anybody notice a different sensation in the stretch? It felt a little different. So this is facilitated stretching. So do we have any questions about the stretching?
I have a question. In the book, there's a third kind that's dynamic.
And that's kind of like explosive type stretching that you get from like doing a very fast, vigorous asana, or when you see like people kicking and kung fu and stuff like that. That's dynamic stretching.
Or when people used to bounce when they stretch, like when they warm up and they would, go tip their toes and they could bounce.
Sure, yeah, that's dynamic. It's not necessarily a good thing all the time. Yeah.
Safe.
Can be a dynamic also when you hold a pose for a certain amount of time.
No, it is dynamic in the truest sense of the word, but it's not a dynamic stretch. A dynamic stretch are these large, explosive movements.
Could this be a dynamic stretch, like if you were in Virabhadrasana 2 and coming down and then coming back up?
No, it's more, it has to do with that, like when you're coming in, like into from downward dog, and then you bring the leg up, you go straight into, and then back down. That's dynamic, because when you're doing these very large, explosive movements that take place over a short period of time, that's the dynamic stretch. I think there's a description of that in the book as well. It talks about it. If you have any more questions. All right. Yes.
So it's called facilitated because you're shortening the muscles, you're facilitating the stretch because it's a shorter muscle than what it naturally would be?
Yes, that's it. That's it. You're facilitating the stretch of the entire muscle because you're overlapping the fibers to a greater degree. So you're able to stretch the muscle, so the whole muscle to a greater degree.
I have a question.
Sure.
When you're overriding the reciprocal inhibition, that is facilitated?
Yeah, don't think about it like that. That was just.
Well, I was thinking in the back end. When you engage the rectus, across the front here, you're facilitating.
Yeah, you're
that stretch.
Yeah, you're overriding. Yeah, so you're overriding.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. So that is happening. But you'll probably never have to say that ever again. So it's not even really necessary. Yeah. So that is what is occurring. But I would veer a little bit away from there because it's just a little too worried.
No, I wasn't thinking about having to phrase. I just wanted to know that conceptually that's what's happening.
Yes.
I just feel it.
Yeah. That's absolutely it. But we'll get into this a little bit later. When we're actually doing the stuff, we look at it from a more universal point of view. And that's what we're going to do at the end. We're going to look at these things through the 5 universal principles of the mind. Alright, so let's move on to what's happening when we're breathing. If you look at page 215 to page 219, we've got this really beautiful equation, Boyle's law, PV equals nRT. Mathematically represents the function of breathing. It states a basic relationship between volume and pressure. In a system, when the volume increases, the pressure decreases as well. When the volume decreases, the pressure increases. And this is how it relates to breathing. So let's pretend that the pressure of the outside air is constant. Okay? And if the pressure on the inside of the chest is greater, so if I have more pressure here than the outside air, the breath will naturally move out of the body. Because I have more pressure here, less pressure here. So, right, it's like water trickling downstream. Right, it moves from a place of higher energy to lower energy. It moves from a place of higher pressure to lower pressure. Right? So if I open up my chest, then I increase the volume. And when I increase the volume, the amount of space in my chest, I naturally decrease the pressure. There's not as much pressure. So we'll say that the pressure of the outside air is 2. And we'll say the pressure of the inside of my body, when my body is completely open, when I want to take a deep breath and I expand my chest, is 1. So in nature, we want to level things out. We want to harmonize things. So what is 2? Wants to go to 1, right? Wants to move to the place where there's less. So then the air on the outside then becomes the air on the inside. Does that make sense? So when the pressure is constant here, and I expand my chest, and I open up, I create more volume, I decrease the pressure. The pressure on the outside is greater than the pressure on the inside, and the pressure on the inside wants to be at least the same as the pressure on the outside. It says, and then I fill up with air. Well, now the pressure on the inside of my body is greater than the outside, and naturally comes out. So that's the basic mechanical relationship between our external environment and our internal environment. And, when we go up into higher elevations, higher altitudes, and we get altitude sickness at 18, 20,000 feet, and you're having problems breathing. Some people say it's because the air is thinner, but we know that for sure. There's a lot less pressure as you go up higher. There's more pressure when you're down lower because there's more atmosphere pushing. Right? Gravity and everything is pushing the atmosphere down on you. So on sea level or below sea level, the pressure is higher. When you're up really high on the top of a mountain, the pressure is a lot less. It's a lot less substance to push on you. So it's more difficult to breathe. You have to really expand so that all these crazy chemical things happen in the body. Your bone marrow starts working overtime and start creating these really crazy chemicals which help to make your blood absorb more oxygen, become like these oxygen leeches. It's pretty amazing what happens to these athletes, these humans that climb 26,000 feet of elevation without oxygen. Could you imagine? I was in Nevada. I was at the 4,000 or 5,000 feet elevation, just doing my regular asana practice. And after half an hour, I'm like, oh my god! I was like, I could feel the tightness in there. Just like, imagine 26,000 feet, carrying a backpack, climbing a mountain. At the top, you're touching space. Who said touch space? Those people do, right? That's how amazing our body is. And the reason is because they're flowing with what? With grace, right? They found a way to align their body with what is their highest goal, and their highest goal is to climb Everest. And they find the right way, and their body's going to adapt to it. The body adapts to what you think is the highest. It's always the case. What you think is the highest, your mind is going to go after, and your body's going to follow. So if you think that getting high and doing drugs and all this is the highest, your body's going to adapt to it. If you think that playing video games is the highest, your body's going to adapt to it. So is your mind. If you think that dancing is the highest, then your body's going to adapt to that. That surfing, etc., etc., etc. Right? So this relationship between the outside air and the inside air is very simple. It's just a matter of pressure and volume. As the volume increases, the pressure decreases. If the pressure is greater in one place than it is in another, pressure is going to go to a place where it's less. Okay? And then how do we do that? With our accessory muscles of breathing. So, there are certain muscles that control the volume of the chest cavity. These are the intercostal muscles, pectoralis minor, rhomboids, abdominal muscles, and the diaphragm. So simple inhalation. The diaphragm contracts and moves down. So think about it going this way, it opens, right? So when that happens, it pushes on the internal organs, but it creates space. And by creating space, then the lungs, which are just empty sacs, then have space that they can expand into. Right? There's more room for the lungs to open into the chest cavity. It's almost like the chest cavity says, hey, organs, get out of the way, I need to bring in more breath. And the lungs can drop down into there. So some intercostals contract and some relax, depending on which ones they are. We're not going to get into that. This increases the volume of the chest and air rushes in. So that's just the normal breath that we're doing on a regular basis. When we're just sitting in class and not thinking about our breath so much, our diaphragm's doing this. Just a little bit. Our intercostals are moving a little bit. Our pecs are moving just a little bit. But then when we really need to take a big deep breath of air, everything just begins to open up. Right? There's a huge difference between this little and right? Okay. So that's the second type of breathing, which is facilitated inhalation. So it's the same as above, but we're using accessory muscles of breathing. So let's all do this together. Sit up in an upright posture. And notice I don't say straight. Okay. The rhomboids contract. So draw the shoulders up towards the ears just a little bit. And what this does is it actually facilitates the rhomboids being able to contract. So let's just do this. Let your shoulders be down and try to pull the shoulder blades back. We might feel like there's something stuck, right? Bring the shoulder blades up a little bit, and then pull them back, and then back down. It's like it pulls over a loop, right? Like over a bump. Everyone feels that? So the rhomboids contract. And then, remember we were saying the pectoralis minor pulls the shoulder forward. Well, what happens if I keep the shoulder back, and then I contract the pectoralis minor? Pull the chest forward and up, right? So it starts with the rhomboids contracting, opening the chest. The pectoralis minor begins to fire. My chest comes up more. And what this does is it greatly increases the volume of the chest cavity, pulls more breath into the body. And go ahead and relax. So breathe as deep, just let your shoulders be down like this, and breathe as deep as you can. And now do the accessor of the facilitator. Does everybody notice the difference? So it's important to note here that although we're activating the rhomboids and we're contracting them, we're not pulling them too much, because if we go too far, just like our pelvic tilt, if I go too far in any one direction, then I begin to close things off. It's the same thing. We contract, we fine-tune the contraction of our rhomboids to open up our chest. No more than that. If we do any more than that, then we close off our back. Because we're also breathing into our back at the same time. So let's try this. Let your body come forward just a little bit. Let your head rest down. Think about the rhomboids. Think about the space between the shoulder blades. Now breathe, not into your chest, breathe into your back. Do you feel the shoulder blades actually moving away from each other? Good. Then come back up to a break posture. Now can you do both of those at the same time? So open the chest. So you're breathing into the chest and the back at the same time. What do you feel? Twice as big as you did before? Very expansive, like you're expanding front and back, side to side. Wouldn't that be nice if we could maintain that same feeling, that same sensation most of the day? And that's what we're doing as we're practicing our yoga. We're training our body to do this regularly. Now, in the morning, not to walk around like this all the time. Because for one, you look like a pompous person. Two, you're gonna contract certain muscles that shouldn't be contracted too long in the day. You know, we go into our yoga practice with a very specific intention. In our yoga practice, even though we're flowing with grace, and it's a very natural movement, these aren't natural movements we do all day long, right? I don't go to pet my dog and go into Warrior One, right? Sometimes I have to admit sometimes. Right? I don't reach for my clothes and like go into a bag. Right? So they're movements. This is like medicine, right? You know, a lot of people are taking herbs and they're taking medicine all the time. I don't think it's necessarily good. I think that herbs should be taken at a very specific time, prescribed by a physician, or if you know exactly what that herb does, you take the herb for a very specific reason. Because you want your body to come into a natural state of homeostasis. If I have to rely on a specific herb all the time, or a specific drug all the time, to keep my body in homeostasis, unless it's specifically prescribed, then my body's never going to reach that state on its own. So when we practice, our practice is to go into it so that our body can be in a state of natural state of homeostasis. So we can flow with grace without really having to think about it. And this is, the more disciplined we are with our practice, the more regular we are with our practice, if we practice appropriately, without obsession, and with compassion, then on our day-to-day life, we feel like we have a more upright posture. We can breathe deeper. It feels so much better. And we can breathe deeper without having to go. We do this when we train, because we're training our body how to move in these fine-tuned ways. Right? Okay. Do we have any questions on this?
Yeah.
About the stretching or whether?
Well, I have a question. So in the book that the companion book, it talks about parasympathetic system and how breathing can, like deep breathing can strengthen that so you're calm. So I teach acting, so I always tell my students to breathe into their bellies. And I just swear to God, just now I'm like, do your lungs actually go to your bellies? Like, how big are the lungs, and how is it that the belly rises and falls? I just thought of this right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even thought of it.
So that you have a rectus abdominus and the transversus abdominus, right? So these muscles can both pull in, push out. So these muscles are dynamic and do two different things. So again, it's pressure and volume. If I create more pressure, if I create more volume here, and that allows more space for my diaphragm to contract and open into my fluid-filled sac, into my organ cavity.
Okay. So it's pushing the lungs are expanding.
Thoracic spine, we're stretching intercostal muscles. We're creating more space in the ribs, and by that, we're creating a little bit more space. We're taking pressure off of the nerve roots. If you think about the vertebrae coming down like this, right? We think about the nerve roots exiting out. So, why should we think about it like this? The spinal cord goes through the vertebrae, like this. And then at the end of each of the different, where the vertebrae meet, there's a nerve root that exits. So each vertebrae has a nerve root that exits from each one. Right?
So you can actually inhale and grow taller.
You can actually inhale and you grow taller, even if it's only a few millimeters. That's a few more millimeters of pressure that's being taken off of the nerve roots.
That's why traction feels so good.
That's why traction feels so good, yeah.
Everything's like, the channel's all freely moving in there.
Exactly.
Nothing's...
Exactly. And this is the idea behind osteopathic and chiropractic medicine, where they're saying if we adjust your spine, then we can affect problems with the internal organs. So that's one of the ideas behind it. When a chiropractor says, well, I'm not just a spine doctor, I'm also a doctor of all the internal organs. It's through that mechanism that they're theoretically affecting the internal organs. So every internal organ has associated with it a certain nerve root. So if the nerve roots in my upper thoracic are impinged, then it's going to affect the ability for my lungs to expand and contract. If the muscles in my lower thoracic, so my lumbar, are impinged, then it begins to affect my internal organs, my intestines, my stomach, my small intestine, all of my bowels. Right? So that's why this stretching, breathing, creating space is so important.
So if your intestines are diseased or they're inflamed or whatever, is that what makes it harder to breathe?
Yes.
Is that why you often see heavy people like?
Well, that could also just be the amount of weight that they have on their body, and also if they're heavy and their body's coming forward like this, they have less pressure, or they have less volume, more pressure on their body. And you try to breathe like this, they're taking sips of air. And you can see how that creates a problem in and of itself. So even just working with somebody who's obese, doing restorative postures, doing things which elongate and lengthen their spine, legs up the wall, opening up the chest, things like this, and even just getting them to take breaths deeper than what they're normally taking, this is going to help their body tremendously.
So that's why when your low back is out or goes out, your bowels are all funky.
Exactly. Everything's connected. And then what's the connective tissue between your muscles, your bones, and your internal organs? Fascia, right? So there's a direct link right there. Sure. Yes?
I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about the effect on the discs.
Sure. So the discs provide a cushion in between the body of the vertebrae. So we have an anterior portion of the vertebrae. Let's look at the skeleton. Yeah, perfect, on page 19. So if you're looking at the spinal column, right, we're on page 19, and to the right of the spinal column, this is the anterior portion. To the left of the spinal column, this is the posterior portion, right? So the spine is facing the same direction as the skeleton in front of it, right? So just to situate. And you can look at the very top, and you look at the very bottom, you can see how the size of the body of the individual vertebra increase in diameter and in size, right? So you can locate the body of the vertebrae as being the largest bony substance there on the spine, right? The individual ones kind of looks like a candy cane, maybe. You see what I'm saying? It's they look like chiclets gum. That's the body of the vertebra. All the little spiny things that stick out on the back, these are the spinous processes. Okay, so we're just orienting. On the front, this is the body. On the back, these are the processes, spinous processes. When we're touching somebody's back and we feel the bumps on their back, you see that when both somebody bends forward, you see all the little bumps, and we felt that here on the back of their neck. That's to the left. That's on the spinous processes. The body of the vertebrae, or the large white, it's the whitest portion. There on the right. Everyone sees that? Okay, good. Oh, there's a great picture right here on page 18.
Yeah.
You see that? So the body of the vertebrae is that portion that's sticking right out at you. It's like three-dimensional, popping right out at you. And see the space between the bodies? Okay, so normally there's a disc there. And that's where if you go over to this one on the right, that stuff that looks like gum in between the bodies, these are the discs. And the discs are comprised of a fiber, and inside that fiber is a fluid. So what happens is over time, if the structure on the spine is not correct, then it can compress the disc one way or another. And when it does it over time, it can cause the disc to shoot out. Okay, so this is the disc just moving off the body. If that happens over a long period of time, and there's too much pressure, think about a balloon. If you push a balloon, and you can compress it, what happens if you push it too hard? The eruption. Okay, this is a herniation. So then what happens is the fluid on the inside of the vertebrae actually, or the disc, the vertebral disc, that actually spills out, ruptures out. And it usually happens forward. So you can look at the skeleton, and on page 118 or page 18, and you see that as the skeleton is doing the back bend, right? You can see that if the discs are weak over from prolonged forward bending, back bendings without proper nourishment of the discs, you can see which direction the discs are normally going to herniate, usually forward, right? Okay. So this is one of the reasons it's very important to stimulate when we're doing a back bend. Rectus Abdominus, right? We want to protect the discs of our body, on the bodies of the vertebrae, by contracting the muscles on the front of the body. Because if we go too far backwards, you can see that the discs would just shoot or squirt straight out. Right? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and so the health of the disc through yoga, lengthening the spine through postures, moving through the range of motion, as well as breathing. Because I know imbibing with a subtle pressure on the disc supposedly helps with the nutrition of the disc. So I'm wondering how yoga can help improve the disc function, or as you age, we lose water in this too. And that's a typical process, but I'm just wondering if in yoga also to accelerate that process.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm guessing yes, but I see everybody getting shorter as they get older.
But it's difficult practicing, not the yoga.
Probably not.
Yeah, so, just like we were saying before, if I sit into a chair for long periods of time, right, my body, that becomes a habit, And by that which was designed to create comfort actually becomes a hindrance, becomes a bondage. If we practice yoga inappropriately, the same thing will happen. If we do back bends, inversions inappropriately, then our desire to be expansive and to be taller and to have more nutrition go into our discs will be less. So yes, it will both improve, yoga will improve the health of your spine. If done appropriately. If done inappropriately, it will, a lot of times, irreversibly damage and take away from the health of your spine.
So when that disc ruptures and fluid comes out of the body, then does the body build something around that, just like when you have a gangling cyst and that happens? And
Well, it doesn't rupture completely. It's still contained within. It's still contained. It's like it's hard to describe. You've got a very fibrous, a very tough portion, and you have a relatively less tough portion. The tough portion ruptured, and the other stuff sticks out. It doesn't completely go out into the body. And then what happens is the muscles naturally contract around the protect. And that's when you get not only pressure from the disc onto the nerve roots, but then you also have muscle contraction around there. So it's amplifying the problem. So anyways, yeah, the yoga will absolutely help with the health of your discs.
So if you're doing a back bend and you're not protecting your back the right way, is that pressure you feel your discs?
The pressure that you feel is usually on the muscles. You can't feel the pressure on the discs.
Okay.
So there's not any nerves going to the discs.
Yeah, that pain right in the lower back.
What you feel is you've got muscles that run from side to side in between the discs. So if you look at the skeleton again, you see the body, and you see these little fingers kind of shooting off to the side, right, coming towards you to the right. Mm-hmm. You see that? These little knobs coming off. These are the transverse processes. And from the lower transverse process to the upper transverse process is a muscle that connects them. So what you're doing is you're compressing those, and then where the transverse processes meet, those compress. So that actual feeling of bone on bone is that called facet joints. So you're compressing your facet joints. What are called the paraspinal muscles are then being compressed. And then your body's sending an overall nerve response saying, hey, stop doing this, it hurts. So that's my take on that. Any other questions on this stuff? Okay, let's move into some more esoteric stuff. So the bandhas, let's turn to page 220. And is everybody fine? Does anybody need to take a break? Because otherwise we'll go through the bandhas. Does everybody want to take a break? 5-minute break maybe? Use a bathroom or get some water? Okay, let's do that first and we'll go on to this last.
Wait, step up.
So the bottom is the Mula Bandha, and then the center is the Pranayama Bandha, and then the throat block is the Jaladhara Bandha. So bandhas are physiological and energetic bonds. So they both block physical structures, block air, and they also block energy. That are used during advanced pranayama and kriya yoga exercises to greatly increase physical and spiritual energy. It is important that they are done appropriately and under the right guidance, otherwise you will damage your physiology and possibly your mind as well. I think I mentioned this before, there's actually in the DSM, which is the manual for diagnosing psychological disorders here in the West, there's actually an entire portion geared towards meditation, qigong, and yoga and induced psychosis. And most of it has to do with the inappropriate use of the bandhas. So these are huge.
Those are in the DSM-4.
Yeah.
DSM-4. It'll be under culturally associated Qigong-induced psychosomatic disorder. Yeah, you can also look it up online like that. So today, I'm not necessarily teaching you I'm teaching you the physiology of them. We're teaching the physiology here to make you aware of them, but they should only be used as a systematic pranayama or kriya exercise that is given to you by a master teacher. These are not a means to strengthen your cervical muscles for urinary retention or for a sexual practice for seminal retention, nor are they ways to tone your abdominal muscles. These are sacred and powerful and can be a means to deepen your practice or damage your body. Sometimes they reverse. So, the Mula Bandha, it's first chakra activation, and if you look on page 220, okay. If you're looking on the left-hand side, you can see the muscles of the pelvic floor. They call these the BC muscles. And you see you've got 3 holes for 3 different functions, right? 3 different organs. Muscles of the pelvic floor, as well as the iliopsoas muscles, contract to seal the lower orifices of the anus and the genitals. So this is a physical one. Right? We're saying that there's also a mechanical aspect of this. Physical aspect is also an energetic. Uddiyana Bandha is third chakra activation, and that's upper abdominals are contracted to lock the chest from the abdominal cavity and organs. So it's basically pulling the abdominal muscles in and out. In Jaladhara Bandha, fifth chakra activation, it's the anterior neck muscles contracting and drawing the chin to the chest to seal the upper orifices of the mouth, nose, and ears. So basically, you're literally blocking off. You're creating a division between the earth and your body with Muladhara Bandha, Mula Bandha. You're creating a division between your air-filled body and your fluid-filled body with Uddiyana Bandha. And you're creating a division between your air-filled body and the orifices, the ears, the eyes, and the mouth, the nose and mouth, here with Jalandhara Bandha. So the way that it looks is, and it's all done in a very appropriate sequence. And please don't do this unless you receive a teaching from a master teacher. So that's not from me. That's not from most of the teachers I know. It's from a master teacher. And that's there's 2 different ways to do it. You either, and it's for very appropriate circumstances, you either do the 3 locks on full breath or empty breath. And the easiest way to demonstrate it is on empty breath. And just even that in itself creates a huge amount of energy that flows throughout my body and makes me feel good. So they're very powerful, extremely powerful. And if you have a chance to study with a master teacher, and they give you the Kriya practice, then it'll change your life. Let's talk a little about Mula Bandha. Is anybody familiar with what Dmso is? Dimethylsulfone. It's an organic compound that's used a lot in the community, holistic health community. What it is it's a chemical, has a vibration very similar to the surface of our skin. So it can be used as a vehicle for transmitting something from the external to the internal.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Dmso? It's an organic compound, it's just a chemical.
Okay.
It's a chemical that can take something from the outside and put it into the inside. It's a facilitator. So, for example, the counterculture in the 60s would mix LSD and Dmso, and they'd put it on door handles, and people would touch it, they'd immediately get into their bloodstream, and they'd immediately start feeling the effects of LSD. So, practitioners of different sorts use this for transmitting things. It's a facilitator. It's an organic compound that's a facilitator. Mula Bandha as a facilitator as well. So if your energetic practice, and if your mind is in the right way, then you're going to facilitate negativity into the core of your body. So as a demonstration purpose, to see how Mula Bandha can facilitate, go ahead and make a fist and squeeze it as tight as you can. And you try to squeeze everything out of your muscle. Okay, relax. Okay. Now everyone contract the Mula Bandha as much as they can. Just contract. And then relax. Okay, so basically you're squeezing the muscles around the genitals, around the anus, everything. Right? Now squeeze your muscles in your arm as hard as you can. Now squeeze your Mula Bandha and squeeze harder. If you feel like you can squeeze harder with your arm, that's a facilitator. It will facilitate whatever it is that you're trying to facilitate. If you're not clear on what you're trying to facilitate, don't do Mula Bandha. Because the idea is that it facilitates energy into the other bodies. Remember we talked about Annamaya Kosha, Manamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. And then we have Nanamaya Kosha, Anamaya Kosha, and Atma. So it's pushing the energy into the subtle bodies. So unless you know what you're putting into your subtle bodies, leave it alone. That's my little spiel. Alright, let's move on to the chakras. So we're not going to look at the individual chakras, we're just going to look at the chakras as defined mostly physiologically. So chakras are simply defined as those places in the body that have the highest amount of vibratory activity.
I have a question though.
Sure.
Because sometimes teachers ask you to engage the
Mula Bandha.
right? And in order to lift, the way that I see it is that lifts the energy up. So what you're saying is that you would only do that if with somebody. Would you teach that to like a beginning class or no?
I don't teach Mula Bandha at all.
Okay. It's always been a part of every single class that I've taken. So.
And yeah, it's very in Ashtanga. It's taught like as part of it's part of the practice.
Do you know who Graner is? Yeah. You know, she's been practicing Ashtanga and teaching Ashtanga for over 25 years. And she and I were having a discussion about it. And she's like, if people aren't using Mula Bandha appropriately, what they're going to do is they're going to constipate their energies. And they actually can become physically constipated. So she, even though she's taught it for many years of her life, now she's coming back and saying, wow, even though I learned this from my teacher, I don't think I should have been teaching this in the way that I was teaching it before.
Okay, so then what, because I feel that it's beneficial for me, because what it does is it creates the upward energy, right? From the, we have our feet rooting in the earth, right? And just in Tadasana, right? And it brings the both halves of the body together for me, rooting into the earth, but also lifting up. So then what would replace that if you didn't?
So we'll do that in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if it's part of your practice and you think it's beneficial, these are our laboratories, And as I practice with my own laboratory, I've realized that Mula Bandha isn't as effective as my teachers have taught me in the past. It's actually created more harm than it has been. So I've stayed away from that practice. Until I learned it from somebody who I really respected, who I really thought this person knows what they're talking about. And then when I use it in that context, it's really opening things up. So the difference is like night and day. There's other ways to create that upward moving energy than to contract and pull the pelvic floor. But you can, if you like it, continue to use it and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I'd just be interested in the other ways, and I'd be interested in experimenting.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, so what's the difference between activating or engaging the Mula Bandha and doing Kegel exercises, which is basically, it sounds like the same thing?
They're pretty much the same thing. You're for one thing, it's the intentionality behind it, and I think it's more the intentionality behind it. Like why are you doing these things? Kegel has been found to be really effective for a lot of different things. But it's not a bandha. You're not looking at it as a bandha. It's a completely different thing. Does that make sense? There's within all of these wisdom traditions, there's always going to be a sense of there's an arbitrary nature to it, and a lot of it has to do with the intentionality that goes on behind whatever it is that you're doing. If you're looking at it as a lock to engage certain types of energies, and you don't necessarily know what you're doing, then I would stay away from it. But for example, if you do have urinary problems, or if you do have certain types of problems, and the physician says, do these things and it'll make you feel better, and makes you feel better, you can go ahead and do that.
Well, it's a pretty standard thing that's taught to women after they've had babies, just to retone that area there. Because, especially if you've had a lot of babies, then you can prolapse your cervix and all kinds of things. So, I was just wondering if that's going to be harmful for people to do it. But like you said, it's the intention.
I think it's the intention behind it, and I think that it also depends on the person. For men to continuously contract and relax those muscles, it's possible to put too much pressure on the prostate. And then there's some other problems that occur with that. So a lot of it has to do again with the intentionality behind it. I was more than anything just wanting to bring attention to the fact that it's a very sacred and very special part of our practice, and that it shouldn't be taken lightly. Alright? So, on to the chakras. Chakras are simply defined as those places in the body that have the highest amount of vibratory activity. This manifests as electricity running through nerves, as light and color, and also as sound vibration. In the body, the 6 major chakras correlate with those nerve structures, which are called plexi, that are the most reactive and the most dense, so where there's the most amount of nerves exiting from the spine, and they all come together and they make these little groups called plexi. The chakras can also be thought of places that can receive the most amount of sound vibration in the body. Mantra repetition, if done properly, can draw awareness to and stimulate the chakras through resonance. This can be thought of through music. If I strike a tuning fork in the pitch of E and hold it next to a guitar, the E string will vibrate as well without any physical stimulation. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I brought my guitar to the beach. Hey, come on close. So you can see this. Right, so this tuning fork is put on E. So I haven't dampened all these strings so they're not making any noise. I stimulate this. So these 2 E strings are now vibrating. None of the other strings are vibrating, just those. It's called resonance. So these are the 2 E strings here. And so that's the same thing when we're doing mantra repetition. The sound of the mantra is stimulating the different chakras, the different parts of our bodies. So we can all do that together, actually. So even though the mantra Om is one continuous sound, you can break it up into 3 different components. You can abstract into 3 different components. Ah is down here just below the navel. U, Ao is here in the center of the body. Is here from the chest up to the nose. So let's do this a couple times. So sit upright posture. Breathe. Relax. We'll inhale on. Now let's do ah and the woo almost like an O. That's what I love to pronounce the O. Ah, O, O. So you're raising energy through the different chakras. Right? So it's focused on the roots and the first three chakras. I think I've got this. So Ah is the first three chakras. Mu correlates with the second and fourth chakra, and correlates with the fifth and sixth chakra. So there's overlap between them. And then we got a little time. We'll do the mantra. Everyone's familiar with, or is anybody not familiar with Om Mani Padme Hum? Has anybody heard it before? Okay. It's a Tibetan mantra. So let's pronounce Om. Say it with me. Om. Om. Ma. Ni. Padme. Hum. So do the Ni and feel the Ni at the top of the palate and the nose. Ni. Ni. Kind of like the Knights that say Ni from what's that movie? Does anybody know? Or am I just out here again?
The Knights that say Ni?
Yeah, we're the Knights that say Ni. You know, from
Is it Monty Python?
Monty Python.
Yeah.
We're no longer the Knights that say Ni. We're now the Knights that say Tiki Tiki Om. Alright, so anyways. My dad was a big fan of Monty Python. So it's Om. Ma. Ni. Padme. Hum. So just say Om and see where you feel it. Om. Kind of travels throughout your entire body, right? It's always just like Om. It travels throughout your entire body. Say Ma. It's like in your throat and your chest, right? Ma. Ni. Padme. Hum. So we have Om. Ma. Ni. Padme. Hum. So the Om feels it from the root to the lips. Ma at the throat and the chest. Ni at the roof of the mouth, nose, and the third eye. Padme is the mouth, throat, and the chest. Padme. And Hum is from the lips to the root. Om Mani Padme Hum. So you're basically doing acrobatics with your energy, using your voice, using your breath, and using resonance. So let's chant that a few times together. Take a nice deep breath. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. And do it 2 times. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. A little bit faster. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. And do it 3 times. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. And 4 times. Om Mani Padme. 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 Now do it as many times as you can. Om Mani Padme. 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 And then now watch your internal energies, watch your breath, and watch the sensations, the vibrations in your body as you do this. And it almost feels like certain places are lighting up with each syllable. So we'll do this one more time. As many times as you like. Om Mani Padme. 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 And then how do you feel? Extremely relaxed. Yeah. So you're basically balancing all of your chakras using your own voice. Isn't that amazing? Using your own resonance, your own voice, you're able to balance your own chakras. You're able to balance all of your energies. Now the mantra Om Mani Padme, there's entire volumes of books written about what it's about. But for the most part, it makes you feel good. That's all that matters. Alright? So we time to put it together. We put all this together. We've got 20 minutes to make this whole thing make sense. So go ahead and push your books off to the side. Invoke the spirit of John Friends to help me out with this. So don't worry about your notes now. I've got everything written down there that you need. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to. As teachers, it's good to have an intimate knowledge, working knowledge of human anatomy and physiology. So that's basically what we've done. We've looked at things from the outside in, we've pulled things apart, we've looked at them, we've dissected it. It's been very abstract. This helps us to understand why we and our students may be experiencing discomfort, injury in our body, or plateauing in the Hatha Yoga practice. It also gives us the tools to experience deeper sensations in our body. This knowledge, this working knowledge of human anatomy and physiology. This being said, it is not a necessary component of practice. You don't need to know anatomy and physiology to practice yoga. It's not necessary. It's only a tool. For example, knowing all the components of the digestive tract, while useful, it's not necessary to eat. We can eat without knowing all the components of the digestive tract, right? In fact, we thought about like, well, my stomach's going to this. We get a headache every time we ate, right? If we just follow some simple guidelines about the way that we eat, we don't have to think about our digestive tract. It's going to do its own thing. So it's the same thing in our asana practice, in our Hatha Yoga practice. If we follow some basic principles, we don't really need to think about our anatomy and physiology. It's good to have that knowledge. It's excellent to have that knowledge. But it's not necessary if you follow the principles appropriately. This is the introduction. So I adapted these 5 principles from John Friend's 5 universal principles of alignment from the Anusara tradition. In my experience, they seem to be the most accurate way to interact with our body in the most balanced fashion. And I've definitely noticed for myself and for my friends that practice that it's the most effective for really opening our bodies and for helping us to flow with grace, which is what Anusara means. It means to flow with grace. And I'll just describe to you the 5 principles of alignment are setting the foundation and opening to grace. After that, then we use a little muscular energy to hold in towards the midline. And then we do some internal rotation, we do some external rotation. And with that, we do some loops in our bodies. And then after that, we open up to the organic energy. And the organic energy is the feeling that we get when we're properly aligned. It's that sensation of complete openness. It's that feeling that we're moving with ease, moving with grace. It's the movement of chi and prana as it moves through our channels. This is the organic energy. So let's come to the top of our mats. And we're going to do a Surya Namaskar, sun salutation practice. Demonstrating and following the 5 principles to open to grace means to accept ourselves exactly like we are in this moment. Completely accept yourself. And it's opening to the possibility that we can be in proper alignment and that we can flow with grace. Setting the foundation and opening to grace is the most important because it's our starting point, it's home. It's our home, it's our home. So it's like on a musical instrument. Setting the foundation and opening to grace is our home, it's our entry note. It's what creates the space in our body. So it's that entry note. From here, from grace, from the starting point, then I can move. place that we start and it's the place that we end. It's what allows us to be able to create this space. So from here, begin to feel a sense of spaciousness in your body, an upward lifting energy, using first your imagination, not your body. Let your imagination, your mind, bring things up, create space in your body. Open up to the possibility that we can do this way. Accept yourself exactly as we are. And then now we're going to use a little muscular energy. So spread the toes wildly. More out to the side than up. Really spread them out. Good, and let them come back down to the mat. Don't grip the mat with your toes. And then this muscular energy is a hugging inward. It's hugging the midline. So begin to contract the muscles in the front of your legs. So you begin to feel the muscles squeeze around the bones. And feel the muscles on the back of your legs contract as well. Just a little bit, not too much. And then now hug your legs towards the midline. So it's like you're trying to bring your shins in towards each other. You're not going to go anywhere. You're just hugging your legs in towards the midline. And you feel the insides of your legs begin to tone, right? Everyone feels this? Good. So this is the first part of muscular energy. Hugging the midline, side to side, front to back, left to right. And the next principle is internal rotation, inner spiral. So pretend like the inner thighs are moving, both the thighs are moving back, but the inner thighs are moving back faster than the outer thighs. So in either case, the thighs are moving back. The inner thighs are moving back faster than the outer thighs. What you feel is a sense of broadening on the lower back, and you begin to push the butt back just a little bit. So we have a hugging in towards the midline, the inner rotation with the inner thighs moving back faster than the outer thighs, a broadening on the back side of the body, especially the back side of the hips. And now we're going to do outer spiral. And the way we do this is just by scooping the tailbone and pointing the tailbone down towards the heels. Now the body should feel in good alignment from the bottom to the top. So go ahead and relax. Let's do this all together one more time. So set the foundation, open to grace. Feel that sense of spaciousness in your body first. Muscular energy. Squeeze the muscle side to side, front to back. A sense of integration. And now hug the midline by drawing the legs towards each other just a little bit. Inner rotation by bringing the inner thighs back faster than the outer thighs. And either way, both thighs are moving back. You feel a broadening, a sense of spaciousness on the lower back. And now into that space that you've created, scoop the tailbone. Draw the tailbone down towards the heels and bring it in. Beautiful. And here, from here, the organic energy should flow. You should feel a sense of stability and strength of the lower legs. As you inhale, scoop your arms to the side, come all the way up. Extend. Create more space between the bottom of your rib and the top of the hips. Scoop the tailbone a little bit more into the space. Good. Breathe deep. And exhale, fold forward. Place your fingertips or plant your palms at the front of your shins. Good. And let's do this one more time. Squeeze the muscles around the legs. Muscular contraction. Muscular energy. Draw muscular energy into the core of the body by squeezing the legs towards each other, just a little bit. Now make the inner thighs move back faster than the outer thighs. And scoop the tailbone even here. Beautiful. Keep this lower body just like it is. Inhale and extend the spine towards the center of the room. Breathe deep. Exhale, fold forward. Do this 2 times on your own. The inhalation and extension. Exhalation, folding forward. One more time. Next time you inhale and extend, plant your palms and step your right leg back to a deep lunge. Good. Come up onto the fingertips. Now everyone, please lift the hips up a little bit. So the tendency is to darken here. So we're going to open to grace. Opening to grace is just creating some space.
Create some space here. Draw the left hip back, right hip forward. Beautiful. And now squeeze the muscles around the front of the back leg. And now the back of the back leg. And now draw muscular energy into the core. This is that sense of lifting that we were talking about. By pretending like you're trying to draw the right leg towards the left, front to back, side to side. Squeeze muscular energy into the center. Notice you don't have to contract the lower body. You feel a lifting sensation, right? Extend the spine straight out towards the center of the room. Keep this going. Breathe. And now continue this movement towards the center of the body. So the legs are moving towards each other, front to back, side to side. And now extend out through the heel. So you've got two actions going on towards each other at the same time. We have a condensing in towards the core and then expanding out through the extremities, through the knee and the back heel at the same time. Beautiful. Breathe one more time, nice and deep. And as you exhale, step back and down the back. Even here, start with your feet. Spread the toes nice and wide. Muscular energy. Draw the legs towards each other without bringing the feet towards each other. Just hug the midline. And then make the inner thighs go back faster than the outer thighs. And then scoop the tailbone into that space and get rid of that curvature in the lower back. Yes, perfect. Good. And even with the arms, draw the forearms towards each other. Beautiful. And on the next inhalation, step your right foot forward. Point the fingertips, extend the spine. So a little muscular energy into the back leg. Feel those muscles contract. Now pretend like you're trying to draw your right heel towards your left toes. Pulling muscular energy into the core, front to back. Now bring it in side to side. And you feel the hip square a little bit. The right hip moves back a little bit, left hip moves forward. Good. And lift it up. Lift the hips up just a little bit. You feel a more sense of lightness, more strength. Spread the toes wide, both feet. Beautiful. Keep this going in. Keep the muscular energy pulling in towards the center line. Extend out of the knee and the back heel. Good. Breathe. Now as you inhale, step forward. Uttanasana. Do this with the principles. Contract the muscles in the front of the legs, back of the legs. Hug the midline. Inner rotation. Scoop the tailbone to the outer leg. So the outer rotate. Inhale, extend the spine. Exhale, hold. Some more breaths, just like this. Stay here for a moment. Let your body come all the way down to Uttanasana. Bring your attention to the hips. Think about your hips scooping. Just using your imagination. Don't actually move them yet. And think about your tailbone attached to the bottom of your skull. So as your tailbone moves down towards your heels, your whole body will come up as one unit. So let's do this together. Spread the toes wide. Squeeze muscular energy, front to back, side to side. Now draw muscular energy into the core of the body by hugging the midline. Internally rotate. Externally rotate by scooping the tailbone. And as that happens, bring the whole body in. Tailbone comes down between the legs. Shoulders come onto the back. Extend up. Scoop the tailbone. And come down. So how did that feel? It felt pretty in alignment. Now imagine doing a full hour and a half or 2 hour practice where you're using all of those things in every posture. 5 principles. Open up to grace, set the foundation. Every time you do a posture, you open your grace. That sense of openness has to be there. Muscular energy to create a sense of what we were saying before, a sense of stability in the joint. And then internal rotation. external rotation by scooping the tailbone. And then the organic energy just flows. Right? So there's two more components, and that's with the upper body. Three more components actually. So it's skull loop, shoulder loop, kidney. Okay. So with your head level, bring your hand to the back of your head, and don't move your hand, don't move your head, just push your head back into the back of your head, or into your head. And feel how that stimulates the muscles on the back of your neck, right? Okay, relax your hand down. Now push your head back without it going anywhere. Are you becoming more aware of your back body? Are you becoming more aware of the back of your head and the back of your neck? Right? You feel that there. You have more awareness there. Good. Now imagine that your palate, your upper palate, where our knee was when we were doing Om Mani Padme Hum, imagine that your upper palate, as that pushes back, there's a connection to our heart. As that pushes back, our heart comes forward a little bit more. So bring this, a little bit of movement back with the head, and you have more sensitivity, more awareness to the back of your head and the back of your neck, and your heart begins to open just a little bit more. Good. Now staying here, draw the shoulders up towards the ears just a little bit, shoulder blades on the back. Externally rotate, draw the tips of the shoulder blades forward towards the heart. And the heart comes forward even more. So the head is coming back, pushing the heart forward. The shoulder blades, tips of the shoulder blades are coming toward the spine, pushing the heart forward. Right? So we've got two loops. So we've got a lot of this motion, and we have to balance this out by drawing the waistline back. Draw the waistline back. Keep that sense of lift. Good. Isometrically draw the legs towards each other. Squeeze the muscles on the front of the body, on the front of the legs, muscles on the back of the legs. Inner rotate. Scoop the tailbone. Now maintain this posture, but relax your body. Relax your mind. So muscles are still a little bit stimulated. Just enough. Just enough to let the energy flow, but not too much. Go ahead and close your eyes. Breathe. Let your body be relaxed, but upright. A sense of ease in your body. Take a moment, move your body around just a little bit, and try to find these pockets of least resistance. So maybe your tailbone comes back and forward a little bit, you squeeze a little bit. See if you can make your body, find your body into proper alignment. And once you have it there, breathe for a few breaths. And I'll run you through this one more time. So the upper palate moves back. As that happens, we become more aware of the back of our neck and the back of our skull. We begin to find an awareness, a relationship between our upper palate and our heart. So the upper palate moves back, the heart moves forward. The shoulder blades come together a little bit more on the back, and the tips of the shoulder blades move forward towards the heart, and the heart moves forward even more. And then to balance this action, the ribcage comes back, the waistline comes back. Hugging the midline with the legs, muscular energy, drawing energy up into the core of the body, hugging the midline, internally rotate, inside of the thighs, move back faster than the outside of the thighs, scoop the tailbone, and relax. Beautiful. And then bringing the hands to the heart, broadening the chest. Thank you very much for attending today. It's been very nice having you class, honestly.
Namaskar.